Hey guys. This is What If Naruto's was in Assassin's Creed. Sarutobi Hiruzen arranges for Naruto to be kidnapped by a strange man clad in white robes. Now, 7 years later, Uzumaki Naruto returns as an assassin in training. Hiruzen Sarutobi's initial move is only the beginning of a war that will stretch across several timelines. Are you ready? Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are paid, that's all. We are God.
The first rays of the sun were just piercing the windows. The stars were waging a losing battle against the sky. The air was so cold it could bite, and somewhere in the fortress town, a young boy was already making his way through the rooftops. TCH, this is getting easier every day. He brought his hand in front of his face, as he sprinted noiselessly through the rooftops. The cold air whipping his visage felt vaguely pleasant. There wasn't even a hint of his being bothered by the cold as he traversed his daily routine. His running was neither hurried nor forceful, yet it wasn't the lazy jog he'd seen many people commit to. The sure-footed manner in which he sprinted indicated a startling lack of ignorance in the art. Wetting his lips, he let his eyes adjust to the lighting, a deep, dark blue encroached only by the periodically positioned torches, the shadows cast by them slowly fading. He grunted as he jumped and landed onto a relatively empty area, a training ground. The parkour hadn't even scraped his seemingly endless stamina. Drawing a breath, the boy looked up to see someone was already there. Another young boy his age. Similar in height and physique, the two boys were apparently expecting each other. No words were exchanged. Two pairs of eyes met momentarily. Ready? They were off, sparring lightly. Feeling rusty? You wish, kid. The silence that seemed to hang in the air was only interrupted by the odd grunt and the gasps. Cold and gray at first sight, their fortress town was by no means what it looked like. The houses and the trees seemed to blend into each other, and there was never lack of shade. The cool, calm air of peace was never disturbed. Done. 15 minutes later, Uzumaki Naruto's opponent was panting. Naruto was clutching his sides. He'd been jabbed a few times, but he'd landed a few good ones too. Let's go, the blonde-haired boy said. You know what master'll do if we're late. His opponent, the boy named Darim, chuckled. Altair ibn Lahad did have that effect on those he trained. The master silently observed the two boys standing before him. A light smile graced his usually stoic features. Dressed in a flawless white robe, the man had a regal, graceful aura to him. The young boy wasn't a native of Masyaf. No, he was merely a hostage captured and taken on one of his quests. At least that was what his report said. What surprised him was the fact that the boy had come willingly. And soon enough, the master had realized that there was more to the boy than met the eye. He was no longer merely a hostage. At age 13, he had grown up to a fine young teen. Now, however, the time had come to dispel him from their ranks. The time had come for the boy to return to his village, a far-off place somewhere in the east. He was glad Darim had decided to befriend the energetic young boy. It was hard to tell now if the two were brothers or not. Today's an important day, young assassin, he said, watching the boy closely. The boy panted in reply, as he clenched and unclenched his fingers. The fortress town of Masyaf was known for its merciless cold. His fingers were burning out of numbness. He smiled softly, yet the excitement was evident in his electric blue eyes. Tell me your name. Altair's voice was the same it had always been, low and serene. The boy lifted his head, and his blonde hair shook lightly. Master Altair, he paused. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. He cocked his wrist, and a small, lithe blade descended with a barely audible schnick. Nothing is true, the boy smiled, and the man nodded. Everything is permitted. With the cry of an eagle piercing the air, Naruto leapt from the platform he was standing on, and as the wind caressed his face, the boy grinned, repeating the sacred words. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. He was leaving his life behind yet again. The hostage would return yet. Masyaf was by no means an ordinary settlement, for it housed them. In the midst of the myriad of houses, shops, and trees, certain men trod the dry soil of Masyaf. Ever alert, ever watchful, with senses trained to asymptotic perfection, these men were shrouded in their own wars, caught up in their darkness. A darkness that was unforgiving, with a future that held just the faintest glimmer of hope. But now, as dawn slowly gave way to day, Masyaf rose to embrace its hostage, unmindful of the fact that the plan had been set in motion. A course of events would unfold that would shake the very foundations of humanity. The board was set, and the pieces were ready: the sneak, the knave, the thief, the wit, the warrior. The shadow of two hands seemed to hover above them, each on opposite sides. Chapter 2: Before the Beginning. Altair ibn Lahad couldn't help but smile as the young assassin performed his final leap of faith at Masyaf. It was a reminder of how far Uzumaki Naruto had come from being a stranger to Masyaf, to becoming a full-fledged assassin, and also of how close the master had become to the blonde-haired young man. 6 years ago. Altair frowned at the scene taking place below him. He journeyed far from Masyaf at the word of the head of a strange village hidden in the leaf, as they called it. He had received a letter containing a mysterious symbol on the envelope, and on opening it, discovered it was a request. The head of this village, apparently calling himself the Hokage, was requesting, no, entreating him to perform a certain task, whose details surprised Altair to no end. The letter stated that, 12 years ago, the nine-tailed demon fox hadn't been killed. Instead, it had been defeated, and sealed inside, of all things, a newborn. Altair had known about the nine-tailed demon fox that had tormented the Land of Fire 12 years ago. The assassin's efficient and widespread intelligence network had conveyed to him the news of a powerful blonde-haired man, presumably the leader of the group of people putting an end to that which had been tormenting. And then, years later, this letter had arrived, telling him news that shook him, although, for Altair ibn Lahad, events in the faraway Land of Fire were of little and no concern. Never in his wildest dreams could the master have imagined that this village would commit the monstrosity of sealing the demon in a child. And then there was the request. For reasons unknown, the Hokage wanted him, Altair, to spirit off the child, and make it look like a kidnapping. The letter stated that, once the child became 13 years old, he would have to return to Konoha, and any other explanations would be given later. For Altair, the letter couldn't have come as more of a surprise. His curiosity was piqued. The specification of the request was highly unusual, not to mention the person who had written this. Why did he, the current leader of the assassin order at Masyaf, have any obligation to lend his hand? Looking back, Altair could never pinpoint what had led him towards the boy. Something in the tone of the letter, the bearing with which this man had written the letter, felt compelling. He felt that this man could be trusted, and he was not lying. Altair was not one to trust easily, but this letter had piqued his interest. And so, much to the protests of Maria and Darim, Altair had decided to make the journey to the Land of Fire, on the words of the Hokage. As someone who had ascended the ranks to become the leader, Altair had seen and experienced a lot of things. His senses were incredibly honed, even for an assassin. His physique was in perfect shape, defying age. His emotions were leashed almost perfectly by his mind. The latter, especially, was something only a select few could hope to achieve. On the other hand, what he was seeing almost provoked him to the point of killing all of them, the people tormenting the boy. Kneeling lightly in a precarious position, Altair knew there was no chance he could be spotted unless he showed himself to the people of this village, who at the current moment were doing something Altair misliked. Little demon brat. A man spat, as he kicked a small blonde-haired child currently curled up into a ball. There were 14 other people, all snarling and kicking the child, who was screaming at every kick they gave. "Oh, does that hurt, demon?" Another man kicked viciously. "Keep quiet," another man commanded, as he kicked the boy hard on the stomach. The little boy screamed. It was nothing intelligible, Altair heard, as he watched on, revulsion building in the pit of his stomach. "Heard that? It feels pain, it deserves pain," a man kicked the boy's head. That was the last straw for Altair. As he had done on so many previous occasions, Altair leapt down from his hiding spot, right onto a man's back. Quickly muffling the man's scream, he pressed 2 fingers on the man's neck, rendering him unconscious. The other turned to him now, and Altair could sense that most of them were drunk. This only served to increase his anger. He lightly sidestepped a man's clumsy attack and open-fisted his back, sending him crashing to a wall. Another man attacked him from the back in drunken fury, but his advance halted immediately when Altair ducked his swing and punched his stomach. He looked up, calmly, only to see most of the other men were already fleeing. He turned and slowly made his way to the weeping boy, who was now watching him with a sense of reverence. Altair opened his mouth, but was beaten to it by the boy. I don't want to stay here anymore, he whimpered, as he slowly waddled towards Altair. Alone. Fragile. A gash seemed to run across the side of his mouth. His left wrist was swollen. His eyes were half-lidded, as his teeth bit down on his lower lip, a vain attempt to conquer the immense pain the boy felt at that point. Altair was taken aback. He stayed quiet, not moving forward to comfort the child, yet neither backing away. The assassin remembered the night, the scent of the air at Kanahigakure, the gentle breeze that sparsely made its way through the back alley where a pile of drunken bodies lay. But most of all, he remembered the lost look in the boy's eyes. It was that look that struck him most. It was the mark of someone who had lost everything, who was so utterly alone, a human being who had lost everything a person could look forward to. And even as the boy limped to within an arm's distance, the stoic leader stood still, looking into the boy's eyes. And when they stood next to each other, the little blonde-haired boy and the Grand Master of the Assassin Order, time seemed to stand still. Slowly, ever so slowly, he drew his right hand from his robe, and reached out to the boy. The child who had suffered the most cruel of fates that could have been handed to him, didn't wince. He didn't turn away. His lower lip quivered, as the man's hand made contact with his cheek. "Please," the boy whispered. And that was all. Broken, the boy collapsed into his arms, tears streaking an otherwise adorable face that was adorned not with kisses, but blood and slime. The assassin didn't say a word. Something seemed to have caught in his throat. His eyelids seemed heavy, he closed them. And when he reopened his eyes to the night at Kanahigakure, Altair ibn Lahad's mind was made. The mission was over before it had begun. He had an inkling now as to why the Hokage had wanted him to take the boy away. He stood up, ready to depart, and just as he was about to start, he sensed a presence to his right. Altair whipped his head in the direction, sensing an aura. An old man, wearing white robes, and a strangely shaped hat. Something about this man was intimidating and reassuring at the same time. "I'm happy you made it, my friend." Altair's eyes narrowed minimally. It was all too obvious to the assassin that he had met the writer of the letter. "Sarutobi Hiruzen, Hokage of the Leaf, is forever in your debt." Altair didn't know, he didn't have the smallest inkling of an idea, that on that day, he met not just the head of a village. No, he should have known, something far bigger, something on an unimaginable scale was being orchestrated, and he would be unwittingly dragged into it. His lips stretched into a smile, as he held his wife's hand, staring out of the balcony, into the town of Masyaf. The sun was well into its ascent towards its zenith. Down below, practice had begun. Maria didn't say a word. He didn't need to look at her face to realize that she was feeling a bittersweet happiness to see the boy leap one final time. Uzumaki Naruto had departed. Chapter 3, Journey. Author's note. Before you read this chapter, I'd like to point something out. This is not a fic where Naruto is all calm and badass right off the bat. Yes, he will be much more powerful than his canon self, but his characteristics and behavior remain the same, probably less loud but with the same energy and enthusiasm. It had been 3 days since he had left Masyaf, 3 days since his first leap of faith. During the steep descent, he had experienced a foreign sensation, a type of raw, tempest joy, as he saw the ground rushing up to meet him. But now, after all that, after 7 years at Masyaf with his master, his mentor Altair, he was returning, back to his home, the village hidden in the leaf. Journey. Hokage-sama! We've caught the demon! Sarutobi Hiruzen gritted his teeth. The naivete of the people of this village really astounded him sometimes. He lowered his head in guilt. Send him in. Tuienbu came in, dragging a blonde-haired boy who happened to be struggling against the A&B's grips. "You may go now," Sarutobi dismissed the two guards. In reply, the guards pushed the boy forward, leaving him sprawling on the floor. The Hokage showed great restraint in remaining still. Once the two guards had closed the door, Sarutobi slowly walked forward and ruffled the boy's head. Naruto looked up and grinned, but Sarutobi thought he saw a hint of moisture in the boy's eyes. He sighed. "Now where have I seen this before?" he asked, a smile on his face. Naruto grinned cheekily in reply. The old man's tone seemed to change quite suddenly. "You know, Naruto, you always end up hurt after it. Smiling isn't going to wash it away. Why do you keep at it?" "Because I'm better than them, all of them, and one day, they'll all have to listen to me." Sarutobi laughed. "Oh? And why would they do that?" he asked, though he knew the answer to that particular question. "I'll be Hokage. You'll have to hand over your hat then, Gigi." The Hokage laughed, and tickled Naruto under his chin. "As one Hokage talking to the future Hokage, it's pretty boring, I tell you." Naruto giggled, then hugged him. Sarutobi's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, then his expression softened. "Gigi-san, you're the greatest, you know." Naruto exhaled. The sun was at its apex. After 3 days of traveling, he was finally at the last stretch. The density of tree cover seemed to have increased. His tongue darted out for a second, moistening his lips. 7 long years, huh? Wonder how the old man's doing? Of course, there'd be Iruka-sensei, and then Sakura-chan. He wondered what she'd say after she saw him. And how could he not remember, the lone survivor, the genius, even at his age back then? Uchiha Sasuke would be interesting to interact with again. Unlike his relationship with Sakura, Sasuke and him had, surprisingly, held the odd civil conversation. It had been strange, all those years ago. When he'd look at Sasuke, he'd see just the faintest trace of himself. They'd never hated each other to begin with, but there was no denying the fact that a certain untold rivalry existed between the two boys. Back then, they'd been like two polar opposites. Sasuke was cool, never smiling, his jaws clenched shut and fingers always interlocked. Naruto, on the other hand, had been boisterous, to say the least. In what was a huge shock to every single girl who dreamed of Sasuke and laughed at Naruto, the two boys had somehow, inexplicably bonded. Most of the times, whenever they would spy on the class hero, it was always him with his hands in his pockets, standing against a tree and taunting the dead last, or muttering something to him, or engaging in a spar with him, even though Iruka-sensei had forbidden them to. Or sometimes, the two of them would be sitting on the grass, knees bunched up, and playing a game, a sort of contest, to decide who ate not only their own lunch, but half of the other's lunch too. Or, on the rare occasion, they'd even seen the two get into a full-blown fistfight because Naruto had remarked something about the Uchiha symbol looking like a lollipop, or something like that. All in all, it was the talk among the girls, how Sasuke never paid attention to anything except Naruto's occasional insults and jabs. Naruto smiled wryly, thinking about all those murmurs that would run through when he'd walk into class every day. And every time, Sasuke would be the only one who never looked at him like that, never eye him distastefully. He'd be the only one to look at him, shake his head in mock disappointment and remark, still retarded as ever. Naruto didn't know if it was fortunate or unfortunate for him to have met Sasuke, and for them to have forged that thin line that could maybe be described as friendship. Whatever it was, Naruto was sure it wasn't out of pity. That was the one reason he'd felt happy back then. Sasuke hadn't talked to him merely because he was an orphan, and Naruto hadn't talked to Sasuke just because his entire clan had fallen victim to his elder brother. He didn't like thinking it, but Uchiha Itachi had been the reason for him and Sasuke forming that bond. But then, all of that had disappeared, gone in a puff of smoke when his entire life had changed. For the blonde-haired Jinchuriki, life at the academy was a welcome change, a place where he'd met others his age, people who didn't dislike for reasons he couldn't fathom. He'd treasured the time he spent there. Life outside was, well, he couldn't describe it as harsh, for initially, that was the only life he'd known. Stay away from the people who are dangerous to you, seek help from the ones who would lend the same common instinct that was hardwired into any human being. He had grown up knowing naught but danger around every turn, stares and malicious whispers around every corner, and it had influenced the way he would eventually turn out. Even as a small, dirty boy running around in clothes too big for his size, he developed a sharp ability to sense malice, to predict what was going through someone's minds when their eyes made contact. His hearing had been trained to recognize the heavy footsteps of an inebriated citizen, or the light, rapid footsteps of a group of children playing. Uzumaki Naruto had never known a mother's kiss or a father's support. Danger was his parent. The citizens were unwittingly his teachers. Evasion, detection and sensing were the lessons and pain was the penalty. He didn't complain. How could he, when he still had a handful of people supporting him? And then, finally, it snapped. His life at Kanehigakure dispersed like a puff of smoke. He'd woken to a slight shaking sensation. Opening his eyes, he'd stared at the clear blue sky, before the inevitable "where am I now" popped up. And the man had slowly let him down, making sure he could stand. Gray eyes seemed to look into his own. Naruto tried to smile, but it was all rather too much, too foreign for the boy. Come, there is only a short way yet to Masyaf. He tried to take in everything he was seeing. So this was where the strange man lived? It seemed some sort of fortress town. A calm, liquid silence seemed to hang in the air, with the pleasant sound of a wind instrument playing softly in the background somewhere. There was an air of calm and peace, spiced with the fragrant scent of happiness. Altair, the man had told him, was his name. When Naruto had first looked the man in the eye, it was not what he had expected. The man's eyes were empty, like a bottomless pit. But the moment the man had noticed him staring, the barrier broke, the eyes flooded with emotion. The man had smiled. Don't worry, the people won't hurt you. When Naruto had entered Masyaf through the huge wrought iron collapsible, his jaw dropped. In front of him stood a huge castle, and though it looked gray from the outside, it was nothing but beautiful. And as he and Altair walked towards it, he could see many children abound. Some were playing, some seemed to be mock fighting. His eyes lit up as he observed two boys engaged in a bout. Even to the untrained eyes of young Uzumaki Naruto, the bout seemed a spectacle to witness. And the more he looked around, the more curious he grew. As they walked, many would stop by what they were doing and greet his companion, the strange man, cheerily, and sometimes even with respect. When they would look towards him with interested smiles, he would quickly turn away, covering his face, lest they make a hostile move. The place looked almost a world apart from Konoha's constant bubble and chatter. Here, things were a bit more, well, white, and the roads seemed very, very neat. It was cold, but not unpleasantly so. As they walked, Naruto gripped his companion's hand tighter with his little fingers. There were lots of people walking about, but none spoke too loudly, none were swearing vindicatively. When they'd reached the entrance, a young woman had come out running, and embraced the strange man, before looking down at him. Her vivid blue eyes, somewhat like his own, seemed to twinkle, before she asked of her husband, "So this is the boy?" As she bent down and ruffled Naruto's hair, he felt a strange swooping sensation in his stomach. These people didn't even know him, and yet, they seemed so kind and affectionate. Why? Who are these people? Who are you? Naruto asked of his companion. Altair's eyes seemed to dart towards his wife's before he looked down with a stoic expression. No one here will hurt you, my young friend. We are at Masyaf, my beloved home, and the home of the assassins. The little boy's eyes widened, as Maria Thorpe watched the conversation with a look of interest. The boy's lips seemed to quiver before he repeated the word he'd heard only once in his life. Assassins? Altair nodded, a rare smile seemed to flash for an instant. One of us. Altair would never forget the smile that had crossed the young boy's face when he'd uttered those words. Come on, surely you can do more? Naruto gaped at his friend. They had been sparring for 2.5 hours already, and yet Darum seemed as if he had just taken a light jog. Get up! Darum shouted again. Naruto obeyed grudgingly, feeling slightly wobbly. They had been at it for months now, and he knew his stamina had increased by leaps and bounds. Although, it seemed, he was nowhere close to the master's son. Darem was short, stockily built, and was 3 years elder than the blonde. Yet, even for his build, he was quick, dynamic, and lithe in his movements. Darem gave him a moment's respite, before attacking a hole in Naruto's already weakened defense. Naruto felt Darem's palm make contact with his chest, felt himself fall over the edge of the huge fountain they were practicing nearby. He knew he would fall over, and splash onto the cold granite floor of the fountain, and Darem would laugh at him, and tease him for getting wet. He got ready for the impact with the water, and tightened his muscles. However, the fall never came. He slowly opened his eyes, to see Darem staring at him with jaws wide open. "You," he stammered, pointing at Naruto. Naruto looked down. He could see his feet standing upright on the water. There seemed to be teal-colored layer between his feet and the upper surface of the water. Chakra, he realized, with a joyful leap in his heart. So this was what the infernal instructors in the Leafs Academy were rambling on about. And then it struck him. He was able to control his chakra. He had been able to project it under his feet, out of pure instinct. And the moment this realization hit, he felt the chakra layer break, and to his dismay, he fell knee-deep into the water. "Ha!" Naruto grinned. The look on Darem's face had been priceless, when Altair had declared that he had awakened his chakra manipulation instincts, and that it was something only he could do in the whole of Masyaf. So the meager education he had received at the Leaf turned out to be useful after all. The Leaf, Naruto thought. He didn't know what to feel when he repeated the phrase in his head. It was his true home, and in his heart he knew that that was where he truly belonged. And suddenly, Naruto cricked his neck up, and his sprinting reduced to a jog, and soon a walk, and came to a standstill. There, in front of him, it stood, a huge gate, signifying the entrance to his home. The village hidden in the leaves. And somewhere, deep inside him, the cage seemed to resonate with the sound of a swishing tail, emulating 1,000 whispers telling of madness. Glad to be back? Chapter 4, Return. 7 years ago. Haruno Sakura remembered Naruto Uzumaki as the annoying baka who always got into the way of her and her Sasuke-kun. When Iruka-sensei had told everyone that Naruto had been taken somewhere else, the emotions she felt were hard to describe. One part of her rejoiced the fact that the annoying loudmouth baka wouldn't get in between her attempts to woo Sasuke-kun. Another part, hard as it was to admit, sad that he would no longer be hanging around and talking loudly about how he would become Hokage one day, and how Sasuke would bend to his will. Return. 1 week before present time. Uchiha Sasuke, the lone survivor of the Uchiha clan massacre. He silently surveyed the scene around him. Their sensei, a chunin by the name of Yumino Iruka, had just informed them that Naruto Uzumaki would be rejoining them around the time of their genin graduation tests. He had felt a rather odd emotion at the time. He had always looked at the dobe as some kind of rival, as a reason to keep training. And now, he was returning. Sasuke smirked to himself. Though he would never let anyone know it, he would be glad to see the dobe again. Naruto silently observed his surroundings. He took in the smell, and it hit him that he had actually missed his home, after all these years. He was flanked by 2 ANBU guards, as they silently escorted him to the SomeDamn Hokage. Many people stopped and stared, but Naruto was sure none of them could recognize him. 7 years ago, Naruto Uzumaki was obnoxious, wearing an outrageous shade of orange, and always glared back at anyone who glared at him. 7 years from then, Naruto Uzumaki was quiet, wearing an unobtrusive gray hooded shirt, with his hood pulled up, and black pants. He had decided that his Masyaf robes drew too much attention outside of Masyaf, and had changed into a gray hoodie and pants. Keeping his gaze trained down, and his hands in his pockets, Naruto made his way to the Hokage's building. The Hokage monument loomed over them. He felt strange as he broke his stare with the ground and looked up at it. What do I feel? He walked silently into the building, relishing the fact that no one seemed to stop him. With mounting excitement, Naruto watched as the privacy seal was removed from the Hokage's doors by his secretary. He watched as the door signifying the Hokage's room swung open. He slowly stepped in, and lifted his hood, and let his gaze wash over the room. And there, like on so many previous occasions, a man wearing white robes, and a pipe firmly lodged in between his jaws stood sporting a broad smile. GGSAN. Both the A and BU winced out of surprise, but the Hokage didn't, even as the blonde-haired boy rushed forward and enveloped their leader in a firm hug. The Sandaime was still sporting a wide smile as he patted the boy's back. The A and BU thought he saw a teardrop on the Sandaime's eye, but quickly averted his gaze as the Hokage broke free of the embrace and motioned for them to leave the room. Things won't be quiet anymore, that's for sure. UVNT changed a bit, old man, Naruto exclaimed as he looked him up and down. The Hokage himself was impressed too. The way he sat and the way he talked exuded a serene confidence. His eyes trailed down to Naruto's covered left hand, and immediately recognized the slight bulge. Lithe, yet ever so sharp and lethal, Naruto was in possession of a hidden blade. So he had become an assassin after all. The Hokage nodded. You'll be proud, Minato. He had been afraid to see how Naruto would turn after his 7-year-long stay in Masyaf, the heart of the assassin territory, but now he realized that he had had nothing to fear. He had not been ostracized, and he had not been mistreated, something he would have received abundantly had he spent that time here. He could see that the boy held a deep-rooted sentimental attachment towards Altair, the master, as he rambled on about his doings in Masyaf. Hiruzen smiled. Altair was probably the closest thing to a father figure that Naruto had in his tormented life. He was glad that this certain phase in Naruto's life had gone smoothly. He had Altair to thank for that. But now that he was back in the leaf, things would get rough again, although, seeing Naruto, Hiruzen was confident, almost sure that it was nothing Naruto couldn't handle. Hey, are you even listening, old man? Hiruzen smiled. So, Naruto, how goes your dream of becoming Hokage? Heh, Naruto mock scoffed. I'm surprised you haven't given me your hat already. Hiruzen laughed. Oh, he missed Naruto sorely. Next morning, 5:30. Naruto had already woken up and lightly washed his face. The punishment for oversleeping at Masyaf was usually practicing the hidden blade routine over and over until the sun was at its zenith. At the end of it, the wrist and the antagonistic muscles in his arm would hurt like there was no tomorrow. And then, on top of that, one would have to complete the day's activities. The punishment had had the intended effect on Naruto. Even the mere thought of oversleeping seemed repulsive to him now. Not that he could sleep too well. His small apartment had been in a state of total neglect. Everything seemed to be dirty. He had been up late, cleaning, washing, and anything short of rebuilding his place. At least they had the courtesy to not trash everything, but Naruto suspected the Hokage had had a say in the matter. His sink at least seemed to be in working condition. He would have to check on his shower later. Naruto sighed as he slipped on his hood, pulled back his full arm sleeve, and put the hidden blade in position. The leather coating felt comfortably light on his arm. The blade itself was invisible at this point. Naruto whispered softly, as he always did every morning, "Nothing is true." A light flick of his wrist brought the hidden blade down with that familiar, almost comforting schnick. Everything is permitted. Naruto jumped out of the window. The sky was a beautiful shade of a deep blue, and a few stars were still out. The chill in the air was almost nothing compared to how cold Masyaf had been. Shaking his head quickly to clear his vision, Naruto started sprinting lightly, jumping from rooftop to rooftop. This was a lot harder at Masyaf, considering the fact that rooftops there were much farther apart, and you had to keep your eye trained to the ground. Here, though, it was almost like running on land, and Naruto had no qualms. He grunted as with one final pull, he made it to the top. Slowly turning around, he took the view in. From the top of the Hokage monument, the whole village of Konoha seemed to twinkle at him, one street light switching off after the next, and the darkness seemed to add to its serenity. In the far eastern side, the sun was just starting its ascent. Naruto's heart leapt, as a sudden gust of wind whipped against his face, pushing his fringe back. Naruto Uzumaki has returned. Chapter 5, Welcome. Konoha had changed, yet things were the same. The same smells, the woody textures, the aroma of various eateries scattered around the place. The Uzumaki was cognizant of all those things. The bustle hadn't subsided one bit. Parents reprimanding misbehaving little kids, shopkeepers shouting instructions at their aides. All the sounds seemed to mingle, conveying a general sense of life that moved, crackled, gossiped, and laughed its way through Konohagakure. Konoha was happiness. Happiness, he thought, a tinge of bitterness dancing across his mind. He hadn't been happy at Konoha before he'd left. He could have truly called Masyaf home, with the clean, white silence, far-off flutes and polite folk. And yet something had drawn him here again. Was he bitter then? Was he angry at those that had once mistreated him, and would continue to do so if they were fully aware of him again? Somehow, the Uzumaki did not have an answer, as he turned the corner. No one cocked their heads, no stares, no frowns twisting on faces that judged, on faces that knew not what the Uzumaki truly was. Konoha had changed. Naruto stopped suddenly, drawing breath. He couldn't help the smile that threatened to almost split his face in two. He was standing in front of a place very close to his heart, so close, he could even smell the damn thing. Oh, how could he have lived so long without this? They were meant to be together, a perfect match. Ramen. Ichiraku Ramen Shop. Silently sliding his hood back on, he walked into the shop quietly, and sat down on one of the stools. No other customers were there. Your order? A gruff yet instantly familiar voice greeted his ears. Old man Ichiraku, Naruto didn't lift his head up yet. Say, you look new around here. Still no reply. All right then, suit yourself. Naruto smirked. Of course he couldn't recognize him. He pulled his hood back, and lifted his head up. Tuchi Ichiraku had his back turned to him. Mega combo order, beef and miso. HM? Tuchi started. Well, it's been a long time since anyone's ordered that, in fact, not since Tuchi froze mid-speech, and turned around slowly. He gulped audibly when he saw a young blonde-haired boy with startling electric blue eyes grinning back at him. Naruto. At that point, anyone outside of Ichiraku's would have thought that there was an emergency, and that the village would be going to war any time soon. Naruto, meanwhile, was smothered by a bone-crushing embrace, administered by one Tuchi Ichiraku. So you've returned after all. I can't believe it, after all these years, eh? Whoa, Tuchi-san, you must have missed me pretty badly, Naruto managed, massaging his torso. Of course. Tuchi boomed, business has been terrible without your visits, you little runt. Naruto brought a palm to his face, making a mock grimace. Time to revisit your ledgers then, geezer. You ready to hit me with all you got? You've no idea who you're talking to, Naruto boy. Dad, what's all the commotion? A young girl with brown hair and beetle-black eyes peeped out through the kitchen. Has our ramen supply used? She stared at the new guest. And then she stared some more. She walked up to him slowly. Nah, are you two? Naruto laughed. It's me, I am Mei. What's wrong? It's really you, isn't it? She whispered. Naruto laughed again. In the flesh, and all that. A silence followed. And then, bang. Naruto was hit with all the force Ichiraku could put in a soup ladle, said ladle, leaving a mark on the assassin whose years of training still couldn't be helped him dodge the baneful fury of those cut off from communication. Grah! What was that for? For going without telling us, you slime ball. And for being away so long. She immediately wrapped him in a hug. Still clutching his head, Naruto patted her back. He felt the warmth and the emotion she tried to put into it. For all of Konoha's judgment and prejudice, for all of that irrationality, there was unconditional, familial love under Ichiraku's roof. It was an odd, rarely felt sense of security, reminding him of peace and solace from a place he'd left behind. She pulled back, examining him as if he were an ornamental piece in a living room. You've changed, you know that? She turned him around, tipped his chin up, and flicked at a bit of his sideburns. Naruto grinned, clearing his throat. Yeah, no, really? I'm pretty sure I look like I'm 6, actually. Humph, don't get too cocky, she tugged at his cheek, making the blonde-haired boy wince as he smiled. All right, you two, I'll be seeing you around. The old man told me to go to the academy today. I'll be meeting the old guard. Both I and Tuchi smiled at the young boy's enthusiasm. Sure is good to see him again. Little Naruto has grown up, huh? Aya murmured to her father, eyes still trained on Naruto's receding back. He exuded a sense of newfound confidence as he walked. He sure has. It was much later when Naruto realized that he'd forgotten his ramen, and it was no surprise, really. He was far too excited for what was to come, even as he bounded across the streets towards a place from long ago. Let me see now, it should be right here. He turned the corner and a building came in sight, right under the Hokage monument. Not many things had changed in the academy either. There's the kanji for fire, Naruto thought as he looked at a huge kanji with a red background emblazoned on top of the entrance. And there's my tree. They've even retained the swing. Naruto's heart leapt as he saw the tree with a small swing on it. Ah, the memories. There was a young Chunin standing near the doorway, leaning on the wall. As he approached the doorway, the Chunin glanced at him. You're expected. He slipped him a card that said Room 9. Naruto nodded and walked past the doorway. Room 5, Room 7, ah, this is the one. A funny feeling erupted in Naruto's stomach as he knocked on the door. Yes, come in. The door is open. Iruka-sensei. Naruto's stomach fluttered again as he turned the doorknob. The room was bright and sunny. On an elevated platform, Yumino Iruka was standing, looking down at his register. Naruto's lip threatened to quiver. His mouth had gone dry all of a sudden. Late as usual, Shurkem dash. He looked up mid-sentence because the class had gone dead silent all of a sudden. Then his brain registered the blond boy in a gray hooded shirt, standing at the doorway. Iruka dropped the register he was clutching. Iruka-sensei? His own voice seemed strange to him. Naruto dash? Iruka's own voice barely seemed audible. The class was completely silent. All their eyes were on him. You've come, after all this time. Believe it! Iruka's lips slowly formed a smile, then broke into a wide grin. That seemed to open the floodgates for Naruto. He rushed forward with a shout and embraced Iruka. Iruka clutched him tightly too, patting his back violently. Good to have you back, kid. Sakura Haruno was in shock. He's back? That guy is Naruto? This can't be right, I mean dash. Her brain became devoid of thoughts at that point, as the boy in the gray hooded shirt turned to face them with a gargantuan smile. His blue eyes seemed to sparkle with joy. Hey guys. So, you're just gonna sit there and stare at me all day? A moment later there was an uproar. Ha! He's back after all. Can't keep him out, can you? Sasuke thought, with a most uncharacteristic grin on his face. Chuji and Kiba had already run up to him, and were thumping his back vigorously, both laughing. A white pup on Kiba's head yipped happily. Shikamaru had actually gotten up voluntarily. He was sleeping until the noise had woken him up, and was making his way toward the center. An odd buzzing sound seemed to emanate from Shino, and Ino was shaking her head rapidly, as if to clear her vision. Hinata Hyuga had apparently fainted amidst all the uproar, and was slowly lifting her head up. The rest of them just sat stock still. And at the center stood Naruto Uzumaki, laughing and looking at everyone eagerly. Kiba and Chuji were the same as ever, and there was Shikamaru, making his way towards him. He could see Hinata, who averted her eyes furtively when Naruto looked in her direction. Shino stared at him wordlessly, oh well. Naruto turned the other direction. His eyes caught a girl with pink hair, Sakura-chan, and a platinum blonde-haired girl with a ponytail, who was staring at him with a slight smile. Ino, I guess. Finally, his eyes fell on a black-haired boy with obsidian eyes, wearing a blue shirt. His hands were interlocked and resting on the bench, and he was grinning at him. The class went silent again as they saw Naruto eyeing Sasuke. Glad to see me again, Uchiha? Naruto asked, trying and failing to suppress the grin growing on his face. Sasuke grunted before getting up, walking towards him and extending his hand. The smile never left his face. Naruto took his hand. To his surprise, Sasuke gripped it tightly and pulled himself closer, bumping his shoulder. Unfortunately, I am Uzumaki. Still look like you haven't had a shit the past 3 weeks though, I must say. Naruto's eyes twinkled. It took several gasps from some girls, but the laughter commenced all the same. Altair ibn Lahad stared thoughtlessly at the horizon. He was perched comfortably at one of the highest points in his beloved castle. To most people the sheer height of this place would reduce them to jitters. But Altair ibn Lahad wasn't most people. He was the bird Altair, the son of no one, the master, the mentor, the very pinnacle of the assassin order. He was all, yet he was nothing. Nothing, Altair thought. He had been proved that. He knew the folly of arrogance, the lure of thinking he was better than the rest. After all, he had fallen prey to the same lure. He had even gained power at one point. Ah, power, so beautiful, yet so terrible. The apple of Eden. The mere thought of the object stirred in him a fear he thought he would never feel. The very object had brought about the near downfall of the assassins. He should have known better. When power was presented to man, it would drive him mad. And now, he had to use the piece in his possession. Again. That feeling of dread all over again. He would do it this time, though. He wouldn't give in. After all, he was Altair. All and nothing. La she hakika, kalo she mumkin. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. All and nothing. Chapter 6, Test Your Throw. Naruto was expecting everyone to ask him where he'd been all this time. He thought he'd be bombarded with how strong have you gotten, and the likes. But to his surprise, no one had asked him the question. It was fairly important after all. Come to think of it, even Ayam and Tucci hadn't gone near the topic of his absence. Of course, I'll bet the old man has something to do with this. The old Hokage must have told them all not to ask that question. The answer was a difficult one after all. Hey guys. I trained to become an assassin and all for 7 years, and I met this Altair guy and, that obviously wouldn't go down too well. Naruto grinned. He knew just as well as the Sandaime that the chance to pit himself against what Konoha had to offer would come soon. Walking back to his apartment at a slow pace, he suddenly stopped short. Someone's here. I can feel it. Whipping out a small throwing knife, he aimed in the direction he'd felt the presence. Come out. I can sense you. A stocky-looking ANBU guard, wearing a cat mask, stepped out from behind the trees. Your detection abilities are advanced for a genin. The voice spoke colorless, as if disinterestedly inquiring about mundane platitudes. What do you think you're doing? Naruto asked calmly. Don't let your emotions rule you. Relax, kid. I'm to escort you to the Hokage on his orders. I see. Naruto's eyes narrowed. He's been watching me all this time. All this time away from Konoha, and they still haven't forgotten how to treat me, after all. Follow me. Let's go then, Naruto said coolly, as he started walking in the direction of the Hokage's building. The ANBU didn't reply. See, master? I didn't let my emotions cloud me. I have it in the palm of my hands. What? The Hokage smiled at Naruto's excitement. That's right, Naruto. You'll be taking the genin graduation test next week. You mean it? That's awesome. You're not that bad, old man. Not quite, Naruto, Sarutobi interrupted him. The tests involve a simple transformation, and making a bunshin, a clone. He held his hand up to stop Naruto from interrupting him. This will involve chakra control. The students of the academy have been taught the usage of these jutsu by teachers. They've been guided on exactly how to use these techniques. Naruto's face dropped after hearing the last sentence. So, you're telling me I won't be able to become genin next week, is that what you're telling me? Sarutobi maintained a neutral face as he drew out 2 scrolls. He threw them at Naruto, who was trying his hardest not to show his disappointment. What are these now? Naruto picked up one of the scrolls disinterestedly and opened it. His eyes widened. Bunshin no Jutsu lay scrawled across the top, inked in the neat and clear hand of the Shodai. You're what? Naruto managed, comprehending slowly what the Hokage was hinting at. The Hokage smiled. Let us test your absorbing capabilities, shall we? His smile widened when Naruto realized what he was implying. You have 1 week, Naruto. Be sure to make it count. Naruto laughed jubilantly. A lousy old genin level jutsu won't hold me down, Believe it! And with that, Naruto burst out of the office, clutching the 2 scrolls in his arms as if they were made of gold. 1 week later. Alright, you guys. It's time. Stand back in a line. I'll call out your names one by one. Yumino Irika announced to the students. There was a general air of quiet nervousness at the genin tests. The usually boisterous and noisy atmosphere of the common grounds was gone. Several markings had been made with chalk on the ground, and the target stood still in the center. You'll be marked on how well you throw your kunai. Of course, this time your target will be much farther than before. As you know, this is the first part of a 2-tier exam. Provided you pass in both parts, you'll be made genin. Irika Yumino smiled inwardly. The way he phrased his words made it sound difficult. In reality, he knew all of them would pass. They had to. This year's batch comprised the most talented young students Leaf had seen. In fact, the only one who he actually worried about was Naruto, the hostage who'd returned. 1 week had passed since Naruto had received the scroll from the Hokage. Day and night he'd pored over the scrolls. He'd even written notes, spending hours and hours under Ichiraku Ramen's awning, much to Tucci and Iam's curiosity. If Naruto was proud of himself for something, it was for how much time he could devote to what he set his mind to. And that quality had only been tightened during his stay at Masyaf. After all, he'd undergone a lot worse back at the old assassin fortress. Mere drop assassination routines needed to be practiced over and over and over again, until he could land on the training dummy perfectly, at the perfect angle without losing a shred of balance, not to mention getting the timing right. 1 second late, and Master would shake his head with a wry smile. The man has already screamed, he would say. He's alerted everyone. Now they all look in your direction. Your mission is a failure. Try again, young assassin. Cursing heavily under his breath, Naruto would get back up, climb the parapet, and jump onto the training dummy again. And again. And again. Vitality points had to be memorized, and then they'd have to be worked into combat. Layouts and maps would have to be read, the winding structures committed to memory, and visualized until he needed no map at all. History had to be learnt, philosophy discussed, weapons studied, clothing examined. Discipline and necessity, Altair had taught him, took precedence over motivation when he had to get something done. And how badly did he want this? Enough to feel that pleasing grind of rigor eat away at him and fill every nook and cranny in Uzumaki Naruto's mindscape. After studying the scrolls carefully, he'd started trying it out. Bunshin no Jutsu! Naruto cried, standing upright in his room. With a sudden poof, a clone appeared beside Naruto. A clone. Problem was, the only thing common between Naruto and the clone was the gray coloration, otherwise it was just a mass of flesh on the ground. Well, I got the basic color right, I guess? Let's try again, young assassin, he imitated the Altair's stolid voice before resolutely forming the seal. He'd known that there was some constraint, something stopping him somewhere, yet it seemed to matter little unless in the grand scheme of things to the boy. Constraint. Ha! Naruto observed what was going on. The test was most probably to hit a target with a kunai. The target seemed to be at an appreciable distance. Irika-sensei was holding a tray with an assortment of kunai in it. Damn you, you could have warned me, old man. Then a nasty thought struck him. Up until now, he was always trained at throwing knives at a target. A kunai was nowhere close to being a weapon for an assassin. Naruto cursed under his breath. Yeah, this was just what he wanted, to embarrass himself in front of everyone. All right now. Settle down, Irika called. First up, we have Chuji Akimichi. Chuji, a stout boy from the Akimichi clan, ambled up. Here, Irika offered him the tray. Chuji picked up a kunai. All right, you may start. Chuji held up the kunai by the blade, keeping his palm flat, with the eye of the handle pointing towards the target. Naruto saw him breathe in, bend his elbows, and still keeping his wrists straight, throw the kunai. In the last second, however, Naruto observed a twitch of his wrist, and sure enough, the kunai just managed to hit the target. Iruki nodded, and his fellow examiner, Mizuki, a chunin, jotted down his score. Chuji, apparently relieved that he'd hit the target, shrugged and walked back. Ino Yamanaka. A blonde-haired girl walked up, casting a smile in a certain direction. No doubt our hero's direction. She picked up the kunai, and dispatched it in much the same way. The kunai whizzed through the air and hit the target, though a fair distance from the center. Ha! Did you see that, Sasuke-kun? She yelled. Naruto grimaced, and stole a glance at Sasuke. He seemed to have not heard the girl's question. Mizuki nodded and marked the score on his paper. Kiba Inuzuka. Kiba walked up confidently, and held the kunai the same way. When he dispatched it, however, it didn't hit the center, but was close. Kiba grinned. Guess we're all not expected to hit dead center. Mizuki jotted his score again. Shino Aburaim. Sometimes, Naruto observed, some of the students tilted their wrist to the side ever so slightly. In these cases, there was slightly greater wrist action than before. They never averted their gaze from the target either. The problem for Naruto was the wrist position. The way one kept the arm for a throwing knife was largely different. Sasuke Uchiha? A loud cheer, or to put it better, Naruto thought, a squeal went up as the young Uchiha walked up and took a kunai. He locked his eyes on the target, positioned his kunai, and threw it, perfectly. And sure enough. Thunk. The kunai had hit the center. The boy smirked, and looked at Naruto. It was clear what the look meant. Think you can beat that, dobe? Wipe that smirk off, Naruto smirked back, although somewhere in the pit of his stomach, he had a bad feeling about this. Naruto Uzumaki. The ground went dead silent, as he walked up to Iruka and collected the kunai. The metal seemed cold in his palm. Way heavier than the assassin throwing knife. He closed his eyes. An image of Sasuke swam into his head, eyes looked on the kunai, knees and elbow locked in position. He copied the stance, trying to nail the wrist position to anything that closely resembled the others. Alright Naruto, you may begin. Keeping his eyes on the target, Naruto threw. The class erupted in a gale of laughter. The kunai had missed. What was that? Kiba managed to wheeze, clutching his sides, amidst laughter. Mizuki was nodding his head. Everyone seemed to be laughing. He exhaled, a litany of damn it dash bombarded his mind. Only for a moment though. Alright. Iruka-sensei? Iruka, who'd buried his face in his palm, looked up. The class went silent. I want another chance. I'm just not used to a kunai, that's all. The class started laughing again. Even Sakura was laughing at him. Alright then. Here you go. And Naruto. It's quite alright, sensei. Naruto interrupted him as he spun the kunai in his palm. Deep breath. He closed his eyes. He was at Masyaf. The training dummy was pretty far off. He had a throwing knife in hand. Darim was taunting him for all he was worth, no doubt trying to get him distracted. The target swayed annoyingly with the wind. He opened his eyes. He was at Konoha. The target was larger than a training dummy. The target was closer. The other's teasing was merely a dull noise in the background. Useless. He had a kunai in hand, heavier than a throwing knife. The target was absolutely still. He looked at the target once more. He grinned. Instead of raising his right arm up once again, this time he clutched the handle, and kept the blade of the kunai facing diagonally downward, a few inches in front of his torso. The laughter seemed to intensify. Hey Naruto, what kinda grip is that? All of them were in fits now. Naruto Uzumaki can't hold a kunai. Naruto grinned again. He turned sideways, looking straight at Sasuke. He smirked at him. Still keeping his gaze trained on Sasuke, he swung his whole arm sideways, without flicking his wrist. Naruto, Iruka began weakly, you need to face the target, it's the furs. Thunk. For the second time that day, the kunai had hit dead center pass. Naruto grinned widely, and finally let out a laugh. Oh, the looks on their faces. Chapter 7, Awakening, the Beast and the Assassin. Yumino Iruka still hadn't gotten over what he'd seen. Naruto had just held the kunai in a way he'd never seen it held before. Elementary ninja techniques stated that kunai couldn't be angled upward, yet Naruto had done just that. Granted, Iruka had seen other differences too. It looked more like Naruto was heaving the kunai out of his body. What was more, Naruto hadn't even looked at the target. It was almost as if the kunai had wanted to hit dead center. The others were just as shocked. The previous throw had been a complete disaster. Naturally, when Naruto had adopted the weird stance, talks were going around as to whether it would hit one of them or not. Thunk. The kunai had hit dead center. After doubling up with laughter, Naruto even repeated it. Is this what's surprising you guys? He was still looking at them. Thunk. Center again. Awakening, the beast, and the assassin. Iruka cleared his throat. All of them were assembled in the academy halls. Iruka had told the students that their second and final genin graduation test would be a direct test of the henge and the bunshin, a transformation and a clone. A henge and a bunshin, wonder how Naruto'll do those. I mean, he's never learned it, has he? Sakura stole a glance at Naruto. He was currently leaning on the wall, with his hands in his pocket, and his eyes closed. Everyone were still talking about Naruto's latest feat. Naruto suddenly opened his eyes, and when he caught her staring, gave her a wide grin, making her avert her gaze furtively the moment he did so. Did he know I was staring at him? Alright, your second genin test begins now. I'll be calling out your name, and you'll be walking into the room. Do your best. Alright. Time to put my work to test. Uzumaki. Naruto opened his eyes slowly, and blinked a few times, to allow himself to get accustomed to the sunlight. He'd vaguely paid attention at all since the test had begun, and had closed his eyes. A few times, he'd opened them, when, for example, Ino Yamanaka had run out brandishing her headband at Sasuke-kun. Let's go. Iruka nodded as he walked past him, and into the room. A table lay at the far end of the room. An instructor was already sitting at the table, and smiled at him as he walked in. Alright Naruto, let's see your henge. Naruto nodded. Henge it is, then. Transformation was jutsu at its most basic. All you had to do was modify your appearance, puffing out chakra and molding it. In a flash, the third Hokage was smiling at Iruka and Mizuki in the most comical way possible. Iruka laughed. He's even copied the SomeDamn's trademark pipe. Good, now the boo. Naruto interrupted Mizuki as he closed his eyes, drew a breath, and formed the ram's seal. Compose yourself, focus. Naruto closed his eyes and opened them, an ephemeral sense of calm stealing over his eyes, and then fading as quickly. Good, child. You will find that that is half the battle. Gray eyes met cerulean. You will always be faced with a task you cannot surmount immediately. You cannot run long distances. You are too weak to last a bout in combat against even an assassin trainee. You will be struck down. You will be killed. Altair stared down at the boy. Yet what is life without those constraints? So we break them down, piece by little piece. You will run a small distance today. You will fight a short bout. You will break down your problems slowly, and you will never, ever stop. So, Tefl, will you ever again come to me claiming something I asked of you was difficult? The boy shook his head frantically. For the second time that day, Iruka was surprised beyond measure. The Hokage had informed him of the fact that Naruto had just received the scroll the previous week, and his bunshin may not be up to the mark yet. In front of him stood two similar Narutos, each wearing the same trademark grin. There were imperfections to Iruka's trained eye. The clone was lacking blemishes, something that a few students of his could manage, yet it was more than he could have ever asked for. Guess this shouldn't surprise me, after seeing what he did in the first test, but still, you've sure grown, haven't you, Naruto? Hey, so, does that mean I pass now? Am I a genin now? Calm down, Naruto. Iruka couldn't hold back his smile at the boy's excitement as the clone dispersed. Of course. Ha! There. And Gigi said this would be hard for me. Here you go, kid. You are now officially a genin of the village hidden in the leaf. Iruka chuckled at the apparent reverence with which Naruto took his leaf headband, tying it to his forehead religiously. You've finally become a genin now, Naruto. And out of nowhere, Naruto promptly bounded out of the room, without even the vaguest realization that the Chunin instructor named Mizuki had said nary a word of encouragement. Dusk was setting in at Konoha. Sitting on top of the Hokage monument, the Uzumaki couldn't have felt happier. One step closer. Hokage. He didn't know what drew him to the title. At first, it was because the Hokage was the strongest man in the village. No one be able to beat me up then. However, things had changed. He'd met Altair, the leader of the Assassin Order. Watching Altair, Naruto was filled with a strange sense of awe. The man didn't command respect. The people gave it to him. That was what a Hokage was. Not one who commands respect, not one who stands above all. Instead, one who walks with the people. The one who guides them. You could never feel uncomfortable with him. Even though his constant smile and ever-observant eyes exuded confidence, and even a slight hint of arrogance, Master Altair was a true leader. And now, Naruto Uzumaki was one step closer to that goal. To becoming someone who could be depended on. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to imagine what Master Altair would say at this point. Gracefully done, young assassin. However, one mustn't treat success too amicably, just as one mustn't let failure impede the will to succeed. He let out a small laugh. Master Altair would surely say something along those lines, one mustn't treat success too amicably. Naruto thought about what the master had tried to convey. Closing his eyes, he tried to clear his mind of the thought. Maintaining a clear head was one of the first things he'd been taught. Learn to rule your mind. Learn to rule your dash. Naruto turned his head suddenly. He thought he heard a rustle of leaves behind him, in the forest. Not natural. That sound wasn't natural. Sarutobi Hiruzen was sitting in his office, expecting Yumino Irika's report on Naruto Uzumaki's performance in the Genin graduation test. He had no doubts Naruto would pass, easily at that. He'd even kept a watch on the first test, to see Naruto throw. Left alone, Uzumaki Naruto was a determined albeit wild child. He'd had reasons to send the boy off to Masyaf, yet Naruto gaining an outlet to his determination, a way to channel his focus to push himself was not the primary reason, but a pleasing byproduct. At first, the old Hokage had been startled when Naruto had adopted a pose strikingly similar to an assassin poised to dispatch a throwing knife. But it made sense after all. Of course, Naruto had learnt the assassin's throwing technique. But what had impressed wasn't the proficiency of the technique. It was the way the boy had adapted the force and angling of his throw to suit the added weight of a kunai. That showed off quick thinking to Sarutobi Hiruzen. Naruto had shown signs of being a quick thinker, yet the lack of focus and a method to harness had impeded him, and would have gone on to impede him had the boy remained at Konoha. Now, however, things were different. Sure enough, he'd been perfect. The door burst open. Hokage-sama. We. Ah, yes. Naruto Uzumaki's report, Sarutobi cut across them, smiling. No, Hokage-sama, we have an emergency. Yumino Irika has been found unconscious outside the academy grounds. A forbidden scroll is missing. What? The suspect is a Chunin by the name of Mizuki. I've already dispatched an A&B unit. The Hokage nodded his approval at the man's words. The lower the rank of these criminals, the more reckless they acted. An A&B unit was well prepared to care of this anomaly. Bang. Hokage-sama. The suspect has been found in the forest near the Hokage monument. He's currently in confrontation with. Yes? Tell me? The Hokage barked at the panting man. He seemed to be quivering lightly. With the Uzumaki boy, Hokage-sama. The boy. When the masked guard had said the word Uzumaki, Sarutobi had stiffened. The boy what, man? Speak. The boy, he has the demon's cloak. And the man promptly retched, collapsing on all fours. The Hokage suddenly cursed loudly. How could I have been so remiss? It was here all the time. Here. He whipped out a strange seal from his shelf, and sure enough, the seal was growing red, with the kanji for one emblazoned on it. One tail. The Hokage shook his head. This matter is of my own doing. Remove the A and B guards you have dispatched at once, and don't dispatch any more. Yes, Hokage-sama, the man bowed, and retreated immediately. Naruto. Sarutobi formed a seal. He would need to summon Altair here sooner than expected. The man named Mizuki was on his knees, barely holding a kunai forward with a trembling hand. Don't come any closer, demon. In front him stood a boy whose features no longer resembled that of a boy. His eyes had already become vulpine, and blood was starting to dribble from the edges of his lips. With a ripping sound, Mizuki saw his mouth tear at the edges as his canines started to expand. Just a few minutes had passed since Mizuki had told Naruto, with a sneering voice. Just like the others. That sneering tone. Hidden at first like. It all makes sense now. They beat me up because I'm the nine-tailed fox. It wasn't my fault. They hurt me for something I couldn't help. And suddenly, Naruto felt a sickening rage build up, starting from the pit of his stomach. Master your emotions. This rage. It feels beautiful. You control your emotions. You rule them. Who are you, young assassin? This power. I can do anything with it. But then with time I can't let it. You are the master of your emotions, young assassin. Take hold of your emotions. I can't. I won't. You are the master of your dash. I won't let you live. And with that, Naruto Uzumaki's claws extended. Mizuki shivered violently. Prepare to meet your end, child. With a primal howl, the boy leapt into the night sky and onto his prey. Hidden at first like blood on a rose. Different place, different time. The man clad in the spotless white of the assassin robe closed his eyes slowly. So this is how it ends. His lips formed a wry smile. Ironically, in his dying moments, he felt sorry, not for himself, but for his family. Ah, how he loved them. The toughest part of dying would be letting them go. He closed his eyes. I'm close to the end now, but no closer to knowing what any of it was for. The world turned black. And suddenly, a blinding light. An apparition. A golden form, rendering the darkness unto nothing. Minerva. It is the time of your death, mortal. I realize. You realize what, mortal? My life. So hollow, so insignificant. Others would feel that they have accomplished a great deal, were I to put them in your shoes. Yet what did I gain? What did I do? He laughed, a coarse, throaty laughter. Did I really make a difference? I have so many things unanswered. So many answers to give. I want more time. Is that so, mortal? The man's expression changed. Would you? Could you? Can you? Minerva nodded. It is in my power to do so, mortal. I will, this time, I will find the answers I am looking for. So be it, mortal. A difference is what you want to make, we shall see then. Make it count. The old man's vision started fading. He felt his windpipe constricting. Nothing is true, the visions flashed inside his head. Revenge. Yes. That was what he had wanted at first. He had wanted his enemies to pay for their injustice. So hollow, then, he had searched for answers to so many questions. The quest for revelation, from this fog of ignorance. He had then taken a wife. Had a family, settled down. Now, he was meeting his end. Ah, a second chance is all I ever wanted. Make it count. He felt his stomach pressing inwards, his eyes bulged. He felt a teardrop fall on his hand. Sophia, Flavia, I will miss you. But I am sure you will understand. He felt his ears compress, he felt his vision blur one final time. And then, all was darkness. The air felt light, cool. Light seems to be streaming into his eyes all at once. He got up, ever so slowly. He looked down at himself. He was dressed in familiar assassin robes, his white and red. Steel braces on his arms, 2 hidden blades, 1 for each arm. Inside his robes, a collar could be seen. The back of his robes had 2 flaps. They always made him look like an eagle when he ran. the eagle. His hand instinctively flew to his lips. The scar was still prominent. He looked at his fingertips. He then put his hand inside his robes and drew out a spherical object. The piece of Eden. Unlike on all the previous occasions, he felt neither fear nor dread as he held the object in his palm. A sudden joy rose in his heart. This time, he touched his face. Requiescat in pace. Rest in peace, he addressed his older body. He turned slowly. The wind danced across his face pleasantly. Make it count, it seemed to whisper to him. Ezio Auditore. Chapter 8 Confrontation. The whimpering of a man interrupted the silence of the evening. The man in question, Mizuki, was trembling violently out of fear. A boy whose features had morphed slightly into more vulpine ones, surrounded by a red cloak, was lifting the man by the throat using a single hand. The cloak seemed to bubble lightly, showing hints of movement. The boy had a malicious smile playing on his mouth, or to be more precise, maw. The man's legs flailed wildly as he gasped. Do you now have an inkling as to what a true demon is? Confrontation. Even though the boy's mouth barely moved, the sound that escaped from his mouth was terror-inducing. You let me. The man's eyes bulged out of their sockets, and his face started to convulse as he choked. The boy's grip seemed to intensify by a small amount. The man struggled more violently than before. You be bastard. The boy's smile dropped slightly as he intensified his hold yet again. Let him go. Sensing a presence, the boy turned around quickly, with the man still at his mercy. An old man, dressed in white, with a grim expression on his face. You! The boy couldn't explain it, but that rage seemed to ignite once more. This man, standing before him, calm and collected with composure etched on his old, wrinkled face. Let him go, Naruto. The boy growled. Every word the man uttered seemed to have a strange effect on him. Please, Naruto. You mustn't succumb. Succumb to what? This power? Why not? After all, this was the reason he'd been shunned by everyone, isolated, every single day of his life. It was only fair that he turn to that same power someday. Naruto, you must listen to me. You are Naruto Uzumaki. What is your goal? The boy felt a sudden white-hot pain in his head. What was his goal? To become. And oh, a voice seemed to scream back at him, inside his head. Crush him. That same blinding pain yet again. Fleeting, but so painful. The boy's eyes seemed to turn a shade blue, but only for a short moment. When he felt the pain a third time, he couldn't hold it in any longer. The boy's claws extended, and with a sickening crunch, ruptured the man's windpipe as if it were a piece of paper. The man's gasps reached a crescendo. Blood poured out of his throat, and at that same instant, the Hokage moved, faster than anyone had seen. Drawing a piece of paper from his robes, before the boy could fathom his actions, he stuck the piece of paper on the boy's forehead, and retreated as fast as he'd advanced. Suddenly, that malicious smile playing on the boy's maw disappeared. The cloak seemed to recede. His vision seemed to fade. The seal was doing its work. I must thank Jiraiya for this. For Naruto, the pain seemed to subside. In fact, all sensation seemed to subside. He couldn't even feel his heart beating anymore. Suddenly, he was no longer in the middle of the forest near the Hokage monument, no longer in the village hidden in the leaves. A dark place. The air was rank with something Naruto could identify, though how he didn't know. In fact, Naruto could feel hatred in the air. A small movement, a ripple. There was water around him, up to his ankles. His heart seemed to beat faster at the movement. My heart, I see. So, this must mean dash. Sure enough, out of the darkness, an eye opened. An eye, with slits for pupils, an eye that could only belong to. Naruto fell back, as the eye illuminated his surroundings. A cage seemed to separate him, and a sudden wave of nausea hit him, as Naruto fell to his knees and retched. He was in his own head, in the confines of his own mind. His breathing started shallowing as the eye blinked. When it opened again, Naruto thought he could see a maw, with canines vaguely in front of him. And then it spoke. So, we finally meet, human. A knot formed in the pit of Naruto's stomach as he raised his head to see the behemoth in front of him. It took all of his resolve not to sink down on his knees again. Was the power of the Nine Tails? Power? Do not make the mistake of assuming you know anything about that word. Naruto's mouth had gone completely dry. So their thoughts were connected. Here he was, standing in front of the Fox of Nine Tails. Impressive, human. You seem to have grasped the situation, as your type would say. Naruto took a breath. He looked up again. You're inside me. He knew their thoughts were connected. It wouldn't make a difference. It was the same. A thought crossing through his mind was the equivalent of the word uttered to the demon. The eyes seemed to leer at him. The fox bared its teeth, and Naruto's heart began beating faster still. He could feel bile rising in his throat. In the background, he thought he could hear the swish of a tail. That scum you just killed, how did it feel, human? What? Killed? I killed someone. Mizuki. A slight tinge of anger seemed to lick at his insides when the name crossed his mind. That's right. Use your hatred. Assimilate it. The boy named Azura looked down on them, a look of concern on his pure, unblemished face. Naruto's mind suddenly became oddly blank. For the first time in his life, the nine-tailed fox felt something akin to surprise. The boy looked blank for a moment, and then, he smiled. The smile seemed to smite the demon. Not gonna be that easy. Naruto maintained his smile. The fox looked at him, with that condescending leer. And then, it shut its eyes. Not bad, human. Naruto felt the world around him spin as he retched once more. The darkness closed in on him. The master of the assassins, Altair, paced around the confines of his room. Sooner than expected. The seal in his room had glowed, momentarily, but Altair had surely seen it. A grim expression outlined his face. I have been called upon sooner than expected. What is happening? After a few minutes, the man seemed to make up his mind. Tomorrow, I shall begin journeying east. He looked fleetingly at an object in the far end of his room. This was what he had wanted. Though he'd only made up his mind now, Altair could sense. The second phase had already begun. He would do it this time. The leaf. Naruto stirred. Consciousness had found him. He slowly opened his eyes, to meet those of the Hokage. Gigi, the Hokage smiled at him, stroking his hair. I know, Naruto said. It's alright now, Naruto. Everything's fine. Naruto smiled. Those words came as a huge relief to him, to have someone tell you, assure you, that everything was all right. I'm so sorry, Naruto. Naruto felt himself being lifted. Time to get you to bed, the Hokage smiled as he started to Naruto's house, and before he knew it, Naruto was sinking into his bed. Don't worry, Naruto. We're always there for you, Naruto could sense the concern in the Hokage's voice. Sleep well. Tomorrow is your first day as a genin. Naruto couldn't explain the feeling, but joy suddenly seemed to burst forth. A genin. The genin graduation tests. How long ago had those been? They felt like 1,000,000 years ago. Tomorrow, his first day as a genin. And with those thoughts, the boy finally gave in to his fatigue. The class was noisy, everyone were chattering away. Naruto wore a wide grin on his face as he walked in. No one seemed to notice him. Kiba was on one corner, rattling away happily about his awesome new technique to Shino and Chuji, while Akamaru was snoozing contentedly on his head. Shikamaru was in the back, doing what he always did, extremely strenuous mental resting. Hinata, the shy girl with pale lavender eyes, was looking around, smiling lightly. Sasuke was sitting in his signature pose, with his hands folded across him on the table. His eyes flitted towards him when he entered, studied him momentarily, and diverted back to their original position. Smiling, Naruto made his way towards his rival, and flopped down onto the seat next to him. So, genin, huh? Naruto punched him playfully on the shoulder. To his surprise, Sasuke unfolded his hands and looked at his forehead. Looks like they made you one too. Eager to know which team you're put on. It was common knowledge that all genin would be put in 3-man cells with one jounin sensei. It was an old concept, one implemented from the time of the Shodai. This was in complete contrast to what he'd learned from Master. No one to watch your back, one mistake, and that's all it would take. Think fast. Think clear. Think emotionless. Act. It had been drilled into him. Working with others, however, was a whole different ball game, and Naruto was well aware of that fact. Although Naruto thought it wouldn't hurt if he was placed in the same team as. Out of my way, billboard brow. Stop blocking me, I know pig. The whole class, excepting Naruto, who was new to this phenomenon, and Shikamaru, who'd been disturbed from his strenuous resting, showed no reaction to the two girls who were stuck in the doorway, apparently blocking each other. Naruto, who recovered from his shock, looked at Sasuke wryly. Sasuke seemed to have stiffened involuntarily, and looked back at him. Wipe that smug look off your face, you're in trouble, dope. Huh! Naruto! That's my spot! Two voices chorused in unison, as Naruto cowered. What are you guys talking about? We'll be selected teams any moment now, and we'll be leaving. Naruto felt a sliver of fear at the looks on the faces of the two girls. Meanwhile, Sasuke was staring ahead as though nothing had ever happened. Look at him, acting so cool. Naruto! Get off! The whole class seemed to be staring at them by now. This was obviously something new. All right. He's all yours, girls. Naruto stood up hastily, as Sasuke shot an accusing glance at him. Naruto simply shrugged, and made his way over to another empty spot, ignoring the battle cries of the two girls. Naruto sat down for the second time that day. Hi, you're Hinata, aren't you? The girl's head whipped around extremely quickly, and her hands seemed to quiver. Hi, Naruto, she managed to squeak, before her face started turning an unnatural shade of red. Weird, is it something I said? He was cut short of the reply though, when a chunin walked in, carrying a list. The class went deadly quiet. Sakura took her seat next to Sasuke, and Ino, glaring daggers at her, took the other side. Silence for once. I will be announcing your teams, along with a respective jounin sensei. You will be escorted by that jounin once I've called out your names. Am I clear? The class nodded in unison. Okay. First we have. Far, far away. The air smelled different, the people looked different, the sounds were different, the land was different, and Ezio Auditore could not shake off the feeling that time itself was different. A few people seemed to stare at his strange attire as he wandered around, taking in the sights and sounds. There was no hurry. He could take this slowly. The slightly atmospheric nature of the air told him that this place was close to a water body. It even vaguely reminded him of Constantinople, or Constantini as the people would have called it. That was where he had met Sophia Sartor, whom he had later fallen in love with. Ah, Sophia. No. This was a different place, a different time. It wouldn't do to cling to history. History, how quaint. The future is history. Instead, he would rewrite it. Shaking his head clear of his thoughts, he touched the shoulder of a man standing in front of him. Buongiorno. The man shook a puzzled head at him. Different place. Good morning. The man seemed to acknowledge him this time. You look new around here. It was a booming voice that Ezio Auditore immediately took a liking to. I would. Ezio paused, contemplating how to phrase what he was about to say. Like to know where I am. The man chortled. Don't know where you are. Ezio did a perfect impression of an apologetic smile. You're in Nami no Kuni, that's Land of Waves for ya. Land of Waves. Ezio smiled, and as he walked away, he had a notion that surely, something was about to happen here. Grazie. Chapter 9 Sensei. Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame and Hinata Hyuga. Kiba grinned widely. To Naruto's surprise, Hinata, whom he was sitting next to, seemed to drop her shoulders. She bit her lip, sighing. I'll see you around, Naruto-kun. She got up. Sure thing, Hinata. Take care. She seemed to turn red once again at his words. He heard footsteps and turned in his seat, craning his neck towards the doorway. A tall, light-skinned young woman with piercing red eyes entered the room. Her hair fell around her shoulders in small locks and curls, and a small smile anointed her face. Easily the most distinguishable feature was her choice of clothing. Instead of wearing the standard flak jacket that he'd seen most chunin and jonin wear, she had opted for a full-blown stand-out costume. She was wearing a mesh armor, covered by a knee-length bandage-styled cloth, with a rose thorn pattern on it. In short, she... Kurinai Yehi. I will be this team's jonin sensei. She bowed lightly, and nodded at the 3 students standing up. Naruto's jaw dropped. This is the team's jounin sensei? Just how lucky is Kiba anyway? Kiba's jaw seemed to hang open too. He had a tinge of red on his cheeks, and jumped when the woman turned to look at him. Swallowing, he nodded, and followed Hinata and Shino, who were already walking out of the classroom. Hinata seemed happy, at least that's what the joyful smile on her face indicated, and Shino walked with an odd briskness to his step that apparently no one had ever seen. The class went silent after that. A quiet hush had descended on the room, and everyone now seemed to be waiting with a tense excitement. Chuji Akimichi, Shikamaru Nara, and Ino Yamanaka. Naruto knew something was about to happen when the Chunin instructor had paused, and sure enough. Bang! Why do I have to be stuck with the glutton and the lazy bum? Why? Why me? Me, of all people. Now, Yamanaka, you will keep silent, and watch what you say. I will remind you that Shikamaru scored higher in the practicals. Your jounin sensei will be here any minute. That seemed to do the trick for Ino, as she sat down, folded her arms firmly, and pouted. Sakura seemed to be trying to catch her eye and shoot her evil grins, but Ino was determined not to look anywhere in that direction. This time, a sturdy, stockily built man walked in, with an easy smile playing on his lips. He short, spiky hair, a beard, and wore the standard hidden leaf jacket. Curiously, Naruto noted, was that he had a strange white sash at his waist. Probably his most defining feature, though, was his cigarette. Wow, that's the first, and probably only other person other than the Hokage who I've seen smoke. Speaking of the Hokage, this guy seems dash. What's up? Asuma Sarutobi. I'll be your jounin sensei, he said, his brown eyes darting between his 3 students. Shikamaru had a frown on his face. Ino looked happy for the moment, but Choji was the only one who cheered. All right. Let's go, sensei. Asuma laughed at the boy's enthusiasm, as Shikamaru got up lazily and trudged along with Ino, who shot a parting glance at Sasuke. When she realized that Sasuke wasn't looking at her, she walked off with a glum look on her face. Now, our next team will be Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. Naruto jumped at the sound of his name. A moment later he cheered. Brilliant! Sakura-chan's in my team, and so's Sasuke. Although, Sakura-chan still seems infatuated with Sasuke. Damn it, oh well, it could have been a lot worse. Sakura had a dreamy expression on her face. Momentarily, Naruto locked eyes with Sasuke. Sasuke smirked and nodded at him, and then turned around. We can totally kick some ass. Clearing his throat, the Chunin continued. Your jounin sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. At that exact moment, distinct, measured footsteps seemed to echo from outside the door. The door opened to reveal a fairly tall, spiky-haired man with gray hair inclining towards his left, whose most easily distinguishable feature was the mask covering his lower face. He'd slid his hatite over his left eye. However, all this was trumped completely by the fact that the man was walked in reading a book. Kakashi Hatake. He spoke in a tone that gave off the impression of a wet rag falling benignly on the floor, all without looking away from his book. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. Without a word, he just disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto looked round quizzically. Dang. Is this guy really our sensei? How come Kiba gets a sensei like that and I'm stuck with this geezer? With a shrug, he just got up and made towards the door. All eyes in the room turned to them, as Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke walked out. The moment he stepped out, he turned to them. Sakura seemed slightly worried. You think he'll be a nice sensei? I mean, he seemed. Naruto looked at her and grinned. Nah, don't worry, Sakura-chan. I'm sure it'll be fine. Sakura looked at him with a frown. How do you? Let's go. Sakura jumped at the sudden interruption by her crush, but quickly collected herself. Okay. Let's go. Wait. Which way's the roof again? Baka. Naruto grinned as he followed his two teammates. Not bad at all. Alright. I understand I am to be your Jonin sensei. The most elemental foundation to any form of relationship rests on us knowing each other, so introduce yourselves. Naruto looked at his other two teammates. Sakura was looking at Sasuke, and Sasuke looked bored. Kakashi sighed. My name is Kakashi Hatake. My likes, my dislikes, he shrugged, my dreams, I forget them when I wake up. You get the idea? You, pink-haired girl, go first. Sakura's brow furrowed at the way their sensei had addressed her. My name is Sakura Haruno. I like, her eyes darted in Sasuke's direction. Naruto feigned slumping his shoulders, while Sasuke remained as if nothing had happened. My dreams for the future, her eyes darted towards the same direction again, and her shoulders seemed to shake with excitement. Naruto coughed, trying to contain his laughter. He couldn't help it. It was saddening to see that Sakura probably didn't like him in any possible romantic manner, but that could easily be subject to change. Besides, it was far more interesting to see Sasuke being hounded by Sakura, as it was clear that Sasuke wasn't interested in her at all. In fact, Naruto suspected that Sasuke was even scared of the terror Ino and Sakura were. Alright. I'm sure we were all enlightened. Next, you, the broody one. Sakura scowled at Kakashi's sarcastic remark. Naruto grinned inwardly. Even though he makes it look as if he's barely interested, I feel, in fact I'm sure he's making a note of everything. There's certainly more to this guy than meets the eye. Sasuke grunted when he was addressed. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. My likes, Sakura perked up, waiting to hear his answer. I don't really know. Naruto suppressed his grin again. My dislikes, I hate weakness. My dreams for the future, he paused. My dream doesn't exist. Naruto, who had been observing Kakashi, hadn't missed the tiny crease that had appeared on Kakashi's head when he had heard his dislike. At Sasuke's last sentence, Naruto inclined his head questioningly towards Sasuke. Because what I have is not a dream. I will soon make it reality. Naruto snorted. It was one thing that he didn't like in Sasuke. The Uchiha clan massacre. Itachi. He was shaken out of his reverie when he heard Kakashi snap his fingers. Your turn, Blondie, introduce yourself. Naruto nodded slowly. Hi. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. My likes? I love ramen. My dislikes? I don't like people who judge too quickly. My dream for the future, at this point, Naruto paused. To be Hokage, he declared on a louder tone. However, he drew a breath. And to find true peace. I mean, live in a world with true peace. Naruto grinned. I don't even think that qualifies as a goal. Still, it's like a wish, I guess. Kakashi Hatake's visible eye widened with surprise, though just for an instant. All other Jonin senseis were briefed on the background of each of their students. However, the databooks held nothing about Naruto Uzumaki. Even the Hokage had told him that Naruto Uzumaki would be a different experience. Of course, when he had been told that, he'd taken it with a pinch of salt. Now, however, he had received his first surprise. Virtually no one he had met had told him anything on the lines of what this boy had just talked about. The goal of peace reflected upon a far greater level of maturity than what was evident from looking at the boy. But then, somehow it fit. Looking at the boy grinning back at the Uchiha, who was scoffing at his lofty wish, looking at him smiling that way, reminded him of. Kakashi smiled suddenly, through his masked face. The three children looked questioningly at his face. Is this how you felt when you looked at me, Rin and Obito, Minato-sensei? What? Both Sakura and Naruto yelled in unison, while Sasuke looked fairly uneasy. I'm serious. That test that you attended at the academy was just a formality. This is supposed to be the actual graduation test. Fail this, and you'll be placed back in the academy. Sensei, what do we have to do? Kakashi smiled down at his students. Follow me. Right. All you need to do is make sure that each of you get a bell from me. Wait, that's it? Yes, Naruto, that's it. With a clink, Kakashi withdrew 2 bells from his pocket. 2 bells. So that means... Kakashi smiled again. Yes. One of you will be going back to the academy today. A sudden resolve made its way into Naruto's mind. He hadn't come all this way just to be sent back to the academy again. It wouldn't happen. He would show this Jonin that he would be able to retrieve a bell, no matter what. Looking around, he saw Sasuke with the same determined expression that Naruto had, and Sakura with a nervous expression. Sorry, but I'm taking that bell. I want you to know that if you are not prepared to kill me, you will never even be close to getting the bell. At these words, Sakura's nervous look grew more pronounced. Meanwhile, Sasuke slipped into a stance. Begin! Sasuke and Sakura immediately leapt apart, and receded into the woods. The only person left standing was... You aren't going to wait and watch, like your other teammates? Kakashi maintained his even expression, as he looked at Naruto. Nah, I was never that type. Here I come! Naruto rushed forward and Kakashi moved to meet him. Dodging his first strike, Kakashi retaliated with a closed fist to his jaw. Kakashi was taken aback when Naruto, instead of dodging it like he had expected him to, open-fisted it sideward. That's a completely different style of fighting. It was true. It almost felt as if Naruto was like water, and as Kakashi observed his movements as they fought, he could sense a rare fluidity in the boy's punches and kicks. Looking at the boy, one would have thought heavy punches and kicks, and a style that relied more on power. However, that was completely proven wrong, as it was evident from the way the boy fought. His punches were more like jabs, quick and fast. Interestingly, Kakashi noted Naruto favored neither hand. In fact, though he knew Naruto was right-handed from the way he had fought initially, he could no longer make it out now. Dodging an incoming uppercut, Kakashi backed up slightly and countered with a lower left kick. Again, instead of dodging, he palmed it to a different angle. Is that all, Sensei? Don't count on it. Kakashi decided to crank the speed up slightly. Naruto seemed to react positively, and adjusted very quickly. Doesn't seem like you can attack now, does it, Naruto Uzumaki? Naruto was fending off almost all of Kakashi's attacks, and subsequently this meant that Kakashi was not giving him the luxury of time to counter. Don't count on it. To Kakashi's surprise, Naruto suddenly leapt up, deciding to try an aerial route. Not going to work. That attack would have caught even a mid-level Chunin off guard, but Kakashi had already switched his gait. Naruto's advance was stopped when Kakashi's fist made contact with Naruto's pectoral. That was when Kakashi received his first big surprise of the day. Naruto had apparently anticipated that one, and had angled his chest the moment he saw Kakashi's arm shooting forward. Due to the angle, Naruto was pushed towards the left in midair, and had relied on that push. From the side, Naruto reached out his arm. It was still too far away to make real contact. What Kakashi had never counted on was a blade appearing from Naruto's wrist. Schnick. Gotcha. Naruto wedged the blade on the shoulder of Kakashi's green flak jacket, above the flesh, helping him pivot off it, and extend his leg to make solid contact, from Kakashi's right. Kakashi recoiled as his leg hit his face, and the impact threw him backward. Didn't see that coming, did ya? Kakashi stood up as if nothing had happened. Huh. I see. A blade, hidden in your left wrist. Ingenious. Your fighting style itself is one I have rarely seen. I wonder where you got that blade. Oh, this? Standing a few feet apart, Naruto extended the blade and held it up to the sunlight. Kakashi observed the blade closely. The material looked completely unfamiliar. It was certainly not made in the Leaf Village, that was for sure. He would need to ask about that later. In his hiding spot, Sasuke was completely unnerved at the way Naruto had just maneuvered. The fighting style, the way he had fended off their sensei's attacks, and most of all, the hidden weapon had completely thrown him off track. Where? Where did he learn that? I thought his fighting style would be different, but this is. Sakura Haruno had her jaws wide open. This is Naruto? But how? What is that weapon he just used? She had seen a lot of spars, some even between Chunin. Among their whole batch, Sasuke had been the best at taijutsu, due to his raw speed and technique. But what she had just seen amazed her to no end. Naruto's speed could rival Sasuke's, and his technique was, well, just what was it? Is that all? Kakashi knew the question was futile. He was sure the boy had more up his sleeve. A nagging feeling told him that he was about to receive his biggest surprise yet. You really think that? Sure enough, Naruto suddenly formed the ram's seal. With a puff of smoke, 4 other Narutos appeared, all identical. I see. He plans to incorporate Bunshin with his attacks. Ready? Here I come. As the 5 Narutos charged, Kakashi sighed. He didn't really expect the 3 young students to get the point of this test. In fact, he felt he'd be greatly surprised if they even stopped to think of the true nature of this test. As the Narutos drew closer, Kakashi could easily make out which the actual Naruto was. The boy left quite a lot of clues behind in this certain style of attack. They suddenly jumped in different directions. 2 clones appeared on his left, and 1 on his right, while 2 attacked head-on. An impressive strategy. He's cut off all routes of escape, with minimal use of clones. However, the main flaw lies in the fact that I am aware of the true caster of the jutsu. And so, quicker than he led on, Kakashi lunged forward, and connected square on Naruto's stomach. However, Kakashi never expected the boy to counter. The problem was he didn't. His clone did. With a dull thunk, the 3 clones on his sides all connected, and Kakashi was thrown back again. From their respective hiding spots, both Sakura and Sasuke gasped. It's not possible. There's no way, those are supposed to be Bunshins. They're supposed to be mere illusions. Ha! You fell for it. These clones aren't what they look like. Indeed they aren't. Kakashi slowly straightened himself, and shook his neck. Extremely impressive for a genin. Not just a Bunshin, but a Kage Bunshin. I need to inquire where he learnt that jutsu. I'm almost sure it's forbidden. Meet my new jutsu. Thus crying, Naruto formed the seal once again. This time, when the smoke cleared, Kakashi thought he could see a minimum of 15 clones. I can't be slack after all. Hokage-sama was right. Kage Bunshin, attack! Naruto was lying down amongst the trees, certainly worse for wear. Damn it! I guess challenging a jounin isn't a good idea after all. I thought the Kage Bunshin no jutsu could handle this for sure. Naruto was actually proud of that. Last night, the Hokage had dropped him on the bed after that incident. After a meager 2 hours of sleep, he had gotten up, finding that he was unable to drop back into sleep again. That was when he had spied the scroll lying in the corner of his room. Jiji-san left the scroll behind. Thanks to that, Naruto had lost all semblance of sleep for the rest of the night. By the time dawn had broken, Naruto was already testing out his newly acquired jutsu. Wasn't so hard, actually. Once I had knowledge of the Bunshin no jutsu, this was a cinch. The scroll warns that repeated usage will result in chakra depletion, which may ultimately prove fatal. That wasn't a problem for him, though. Even after repeatedly trying the jutsu, Naruto found that he wasn't tired at all. Before his thoughts could linger, Naruto had realized that it was time to go. Now, however, things weren't what Naruto wanted them to be. He was obviously outclassed, and this jounin wasn't even close to using his full strength. Add to that the fact that Bunshin, Kage Bunshin and Henge were the only solid techniques he knew, he had absolutely no chance of beating Kakashi Hatake. Wonder how Sakura-chan and Sasuke are faring? Kakashi sighed, dusting his shoulders. They still hadn't figured it out. He had just finished fending down Sasuke Uchiha for the 8th time that day, and it looked as if the boy was winded now. He reflected on how different Sasuke's approach had been. His style was based on the Uchiha-style taijutsu positions. He had shown commendable technique, and his speed was impressive for a genin. However, Sasuke Uchiha hadn't surprised him the way Naruto had. There was a certain unpredictability to fighting Naruto, as opposed to fighting Sasuke. The girl, on the other hand, Sakura, had an easier weakness to exploit. Instead of trying to engage her in a fight, he decided to try genjutsu on her. Kakashi couldn't help feeling slightly disappointed when she had succumbed to it almost immediately. All it had taken to make her faint was a visual of the Uchiha boy, bloody and battered. The girl had broken down immediately, and had fainted. Kakashi knew he was right. Sakura Haruno's infatuation towards the Uchiha boy was overriding her rational thought process. Sighing again, he turned his back on Sasuke, who was panting painfully, and retreated quickly. Oh well. Time for Ika Ika. I still haven't found out what Kirito does to Asuna after he finds her naked. Suddenly it made sense to Naruto. Of course. There is no way we can beat him individually. A genin, however talented he or she is, has no chance of beating a jonin. This wasn't a straight-up test to get a bell at all. It's a test to dash. Work together. All three of them finished. Naruto heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. The main thing he'd been worried about was whether Sasuke and Sakura would be willing to work together with him, or not. However, he needn't have worried. Sasuke had already worked out what he thought too, and Sakura was apparently glad to work with them. It makes sense, right? Sasuke nodded, but Sakura still looked worried. Still, you two, do you really think we stand a chance against him? As to that, Naruto grinned, and said in a playful tone. Sasuke and Sakura stared at him. Spit it out, dope. It sounds like you have a plan. Have you guys observed that book he kept reading all along? My plan centers around the fact that our sensei reads a book like that. The smirk on Sasuke's face and the embarrassed expression on Sakura's kept growing pronounced as Naruto outlined his plan. 30 degrees north of east. And this time, Kakashi was actually surprised when he turned to that direction and saw Sasuke and Sakura, both with determined expressions, and apparently ready for another round. So you're finally working together, I see. He snapped his book shut and observed them. It seemed as if they had a plan, as he couldn't see Naruto anywhere. He could anticipate the fact that they had somehow met up and were ready. He'd never admit it, but Kakashi was actually impressed that they had finally come around. Still, it won't do you any good. I hope you're ready. Kakashi was about to move into strike, when he heard his name being called. Kakashi! I thought I'd find you here. He turned, to see Kurina Yuhi standing there. Kakashi almost burst out laughing, something that he rarely did. So this is their plan? I have to give the boy credit though, he's certainly pulled off a perfect Kurenai. Still, the fact that Sasuke and Sakura don't have clone of Naruto stationed with them is a clear pointer. How disappointing. For the time being, though, Kakashi decided to play along. Oh, hey Kurenai-san, it's surprising to see you here. Walking right up, Kakashi observed Kurenai Yuhi's face. Perfect. I could almost mistake him for the real Kurenai Yuhi. Impressive indeed, considering the boy hasn't seen much of her. Then, Kakashi did something that he would never even dream of doing to the real Kurenai. He stroked her stomach with his forefinger. You wanted something, isn't that right, Kurenai-san? He said, dragging out the sand purposely, and smirking. That was when he got the shock of his life. Naruto Uzumaki came screaming from the clearance. Ha! We figured it out. If we work together, there's no way in hell we can lose, to you? Sensei, what are doing to that lady? It took a second for the thought to process in Kakashi's brain. Wait. What the shit? Shit. He looked slowly to see Kurenai Yuhi, with an absolutely murderous look on her face. Her red eyes seemed to flash dangerously, something that indicated imminent danger to one's life. You! Kakashi winced, ready to get murdered, as she screamed. You, how dare you! You! Gritting her teeth, she moved closer to Kakashi's face. Kakashi's brain went numb, and his neurotransmitters started shutting down. Oh well, it was a good life while it lasted. Pervert. Her expression suddenly softened, and Kakashi's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly placed a hand on his thigh, and exhaled softly near his face. That did it for Kakashi. He flew back a few meters, with a massive nosebleed, and promptly fainted. Naruto suddenly burst out laughing, unable to contain his mirth any longer. Sasuke started laughing too, and Sakura's right eye seemed to be twitching. Kurenai suddenly exploded in a puff of smoke. See? See? That's all it takes, Naruto declared, clutching his stomach from laughter. Sakura joined in on the laughter too, seeing her other two teammates give in to the absolute hilarity of what had just happened. Kakashi opened his eyes slowly. He then sat up quickly, and checked for his bells. Oh, hi sensei. If you're wondering, your bells are here, Sakura said, smiling at him. She was holding a bell in her hand. He turned to look at Sasuke, who held a bell in his hand too. He then turned to look at Kurenai Yuhi, who suddenly poof-fed into Naruto Uzumaki. Well, hello there. How's life, sensei? Kakashi growled suddenly. So that was it. He had to admit, making a clone, and then having the clone transform into someone else was quick thinking indeed. Very well done, I must say. However, I remember saying that the one who didn't have the... Nah! Look what I have here! If Kakashi had thought he'd received a shock when he'd seen Naruto running out of the clearing back then, that was nothing compared to this. Naruto produced a copy, his copy of Ika Ika Paradise, with his explosive kunai tag positioned in one of the pages, like a bookmark. Kakashi suddenly let out an uncharacteristic whimper when he saw that sight. Oh, you want this back, don't you? Naruto waved his book around. It wouldn't take much, Kakashi-sensei. If you don't pass me, your book will be BL. No! Don't! That's a special collector's edition. You wouldn't know its worth even if it hit you in the face. You win! You win! Sakura jumped at Kakashi's sudden violent outburst, while Sasuke and Naruto burst out laughing again. Here you go, sensei. Relax? Kakashi lunged and snatched the book, threw away the kunai tag, and started cradling the book in his arms. A sensei? You, pass. Naruto started cheering loudly, while Sasuke chuckled, and Sakura smiled back at him. Kakashi turned, and got up slowly. Naruto immediately went silent. Looking down, Kakashi suddenly felt an uncharacteristic sense of pride, looking at his students. Not only had they worked together, they had even managed to get the bells from him, something that was deemed almost impossible by the other Jounin senseis. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow then. 7 right here. He smiled. Oh, and one more thing, he turned to them. Don't tell anyone how you beat me. We won't, Naruto replied, and as Kakashi turned, he heard Naruto shout, not tell. Kakashi laughed. Things weren't so bad after all. When teamwork was possible, nothing was far away. Sasuke Uchiha had no lack of talent, and even though he'd been unfair on Sakura, deciding to beat her quickly, from the information on Sakura Haruno, she had the potential to be a great kunoichi, and then there was the surprise package. Naruto Uzumaki. Kakashi felt an odd tingle thinking about their possibilities. Somewhere in the back of his head, he could almost sense Minato Namikaze smiling at him. Team 7? Pass. Kakashi's reply to the SomeDamn Hokage drew a comical reaction. Both the Hokage's pipe and Asuma Sarutobi's cigarette dropped to the ground. For the first time in God knew how many years, Might God was speechless, and Kurenai Yuhi opened and shut her mouth like a goldfish. What? Damn, that's some team you've got there, Kakashi! Asuma exclaimed, stamping his cigarette. The Hokage chuckled knowingly. Ha! The flames of youth certainly burn very brightly among my rival students. Well done, Kakashi! All of them winced at Might Guy's assault on their eardrums. Yeah, Kakashi, exactly how did Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha manage to beat you? Kurenai turned to him, eager to know the answer. Yeah, about that. Chapter 10, Teamwork. How would you destroy a man? Give him power. Do you not see? I control all of this. If I want to live, I live. If I want to take, I take. If I want you to die, you die. Cesare Borgia, a prime example of that very maxim. The very thought was like acid in his veins. He could never forget that face. So cruel, pale, with vanity written on every curve of his face, arrogance, etched under every line. Ah, the delusions it provided. How tempting. Ezio Auditore would change that. After all, he held power in the very palm of his hands, right now, this very minute. He could use it any time he wanted. But what would that reflect? What had he learned then? After all, he possessed power back then too. The Auditore are not dead. Me. Ezio Auditore. I'm still alive. Those were the very words he had uttered. To Ezio's surprise, they held a striking resemblance to Cesari's words. Ezio Auditore laughed. Power. Only a fool makes the same mistake twice. A true assassin learned from it. Teamwork. The village hidden in the leaves. Okay, guys, I guess I'll be seeing you later then. Wait, Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki froze. He knew what that tone indicated. Sooner or later, he'd have to give in. Where do you think you're going? I want some answers. Naruto turned. Sasuke was glaring at him, and Sakura was giving him an odd look. You don't plan on not telling us, do you, Naruto? Naruto had dreaded this moment ever since they'd completed Kakashi's test. He needed to explain, a lot, Naruto thought, looking at Sasuke and Sakura's faces. Alright. So what is it? First off, what's that weapon you have hidden in your wrist? Sasuke was eyeing the minimal bulge that the hidden blade mechanism created around his fully covered wrist. And where did you get it? Sakura added. Naruto sighed, shaking his head. Alright, you guys, I'll tell you what. I'll explain everything, I promise I will. Tomorrow. Sasuke's scowl, which had disappeared the moment he'd said that he would explain everything, reappeared at his latter sentence. What are you playing at, idiot? You know you'll need to tell us sometime, right? Look, it's a really long story, and it's important that I not miss out any details. That wouldn't do now, would it? Fine then, you tell us tomorrow, but make sure you tell it all, Sakura declared, with an identical scowl on her face. Wow. Talk about curiosity. Here it is, though. As Sasuke was turning to leave, Naruto made his hidden blade descend, the sound drawing both Sasuke's and Sakura's attention. Just like he'd done back with Kakashi, Naruto held it up to the sunlight for them to see. Both of their eyes widened at the sight. Naruto grinned inwardly. Oh man, this is priceless. As long as I'm showing off without telling too much, it sure is fun. Naruto could identify with that look. The first time, when he'd seen Master Altaire's blade. Can I touch it? Naruto laughed. Sure, Sakura-chan. Go ahead. Naruto held out his hand and pulled back his sleeve. His wrist came in view. Sakura slid 2 fingers over the surface of the blade, while Sasuke observed the way it was strapped to his wrist. Naruto looked closely at Sakura's face. She still retained that fascinated look, but was also prodding at the rest of the blade inquisitively. Suddenly, she seemed to realize how close she was standing to Naruto, and leaned back quickly, with a trace of red on her cheeks. Well hey, looks I've still got a chance. Alright. Time's up. Naruto slid the blade back into place, and slid his sleeve over his wrist once more. Remember, Uzumaki. Tomorrow. Sure thing. I'll see you around. As he turned around, he could hear Sakura and Sasuke leaving. Obscurely though, Naruto thought he heard Sakura eagerly ask Sasuke if he wanted to eat with her. Or maybe not. Shrugging his mind free of the thought, Naruto started to make his way towards his house. Exhaling loudly, Naruto blinked several times. His vision refocused to show his ceiling. Still lying in bed, Naruto smacked his lips and eyed his clock. 5 o'clock. Still pretty early, I could go back to sleep, you know. Grunting, Naruto sat up. Nah, don't think I will. Naruto got up and waddled towards his bathroom. Wonder what Altair would say if he saw me slacking off at this hour? Naruto laughed inwardly. It wasn't often Master could be provoked. In fact, He'd never seen him angry, but he was almost certain that him oversleeping would draw a reaction from the usually stoic leader. After splashing sufficient water on his face and cleaning his mouth, Naruto slipped on his jacket and hidden blade. Walking back into his room, Naruto paused for a second to look around. His room back at Masyaf was completely different. That room held a peaceful, serene air to it. This one promised something bright and vibrant. Naruto had decided that both the rooms were good in their own respects. Right. Time to go. Uttering the sacred words, Naruto leapt out of his window, and as the air welcomed him, just something seemed to tell him that he'd have to meet Master Altair again sooner rather than later. Naruto sat down, not at all tired by the run. He had just reached their training grounds, and it seemed as though he had quite some time to spare. Naruto slowly let his mind wander back to yesterday. There had been a time when his thoughts had been interrupted. Because what I have is not a dream. I will soon make it reality. Sasuke Uchiha had declared thus when questioned about his dream. Naruto had snorted back then, when the Uchiha had uttered those words. He didn't know why, but hearing Sasuke say that gave him a bad feeling. The Uchiha clan massacre. Just repeating the name of that incident made Naruto's spirits drop. Yet that was where Naruto started, and opened his eyes. Sasuke and Sakura were walking up to him. He groaned inwardly. What were you doing, Uzumaki? Sleeping? Naruto frowned at Sasuke. Meditation. It might help ease that permanent frown off your face, try it. Sakura looked at him strangely, while Sasuke snorted. Hey, it's not all that easy, you know. You have to. Stop. You know what we really want from you. Get to it already. Naruto dropped his head. So, you guys want to know where I went and what I learned. Both Sasuke and Sakura nodded their heads firmly. Alright. Simple. 7 years ago, for reasons I don't know, the Hokage ordered a certain man to take me away from this village. Naruto paused. Sakura's eyes widened. The Hokage ordered? Yes, the Hokage. That man took me away, far away from this place, to a much colder region. I trained there, and for reasons unknown to me I'm back now. Naruto gritted his teeth inwardly. He knew there was no way Sasuke and Sakura would be satisfied with this kind of response. Yet for some reason, Naruto felt he wasn't ready to disclose everything just yet to his friends. That's it. You really don't want to tell us, do you? Naruto fidgeted, and looked up at his two teammates, not meeting their eyes. Guys, I'm so sorry, I just can't. What the he? No, it's alright. Naruto couldn't have been more surprised when Sakura, out of all people, interrupted Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke stopped short and looked at her with a frown. Sakura, still maintaining her composure, continued. I mean, you're our teammate, right? Naruto nodded, looking at her in amazement. And you'll have to tell us one day. So it's not a problem if you don't feel like it today, Naruto. The blonde, still looking at her, broke into a wide grin. That helps a lot, Sakura-chan. Thank you. You guys are the best. Sakura smiled back at him, while Sasuke stopped glaring at him. It's fine, Uzumaki, but you'll have to spit it out, whatever it is. Naruto nodded. And now, to make up for your wasting time, spar with me. The Uchiha boy was loosening and tightening his knuckles even as he spoke. It wasn't even a question. Naruto looked at Sasuke, grinning. You sure you want to get beaten up? Don't be so cocky. Remember that first kunai throw? Remember the second? Sakura was looking between the two of them, with a worried expression. Where's our sensei? Curse him. Do you really think you should be sparring? Kakashi-sensei hasn't. She cut her sentence short when she saw that both Naruto and Sasuke had slipped into their stances. You know, back then, against Kakashi, you used a unique fighting style. One that I hadn't seen before. Naruto nodded and laughed. Yeah. It's the style I learned when I was gone for so many years. Alright, Uzumaki. Let's see how many flaws your style has. With a crisp crack ing sound, Sasuke started his run towards Naruto. Eager to attack, are we? When Sasuke reached out to Naruto with his fist, Naruto sidestepped the whole attack neatly. Sakura Haruno's eyes widened. It wasn't often a student their age could have managed to avoid Sasuke's strike at full speed. Sasuke-kun surely win though, right? I mean, Naruto's style is dash. Sasuke, however, had expected that dodge from Naruto. Twisting his body slightly, he reared and lashed out heavily with his right leg. Naruto smiled. Too predictable. Just as the kick threatened to explode on his face, with slick movement, Naruto's hand slid out, and simply diverted the kick off a different angle. It's my turn now. Naruto moved, and closed in for a punch. Sasuke, who'd already seen it coming, dodged to Naruto's left. He thinks I prefer my right hand. And so, the moment Sasuke had dodged left, Naruto's left hand slid out, delivering a meaty jab to Sasuke's stomach. The clean contact sent Sasuke staggering back, grunting. Well, Uzumaki, it seems you can use both your hands very well. That must have required enormous practice. Yeah, it did. That's the whole point. Meanwhile, Sakura was staring at the two sparring boys, wide-eyed. Naruto had not only avoided Sasuke's strike, but had retaliated with what Sakura had thought was his weaker arm. However, it seemed as if Naruto could use both arms equally well. I'm not done yet. This time, Naruto closed in with a palm extended, and Sasuke was forced to duck to avoid it. This seemed to give Naruto the advantage, as he countered with a lower left kick. Sasuke parried with a grunt, and the spar was off in full swing again. The blonde-haired boy helped the raven-haired one up. Both boys seemed to be panting, though Sasuke's breath seemed shallower than Naruto's. Not bad at all, Dobe. Been a while since you called me that. I could say the same about you. The spar had seemed to come to an end. Although neither had had the upper hand, Naruto seemed better off than Sasuke, who was winded after their rigorous bout. Although, you didn't use that blade of yours, I noticed. What? Oh, the blade. Instinctively, the blade descended from Naruto's wrist, drawing Sasuke's attention. Nah, the blade is only supposed to be used for when I want to kill. Sasuke looked at Naruto strangely. Have you ever done it then? What? Killed somebody? Killed somebody? Mizuki. Yes. Nah, what makes you think that? Nothing. Sasuke stopped talking when Sakura came running up to them. Whoa, Naruto, you're really good at taijutsu. Naruto, who was expecting Sakura to probably reprimand him for hurting Sasuke, was taken aback by the compliment. Nonetheless, he was extremely pleased. Hey, do you want to spar with me? Naruto looked up so fast he cricked his neck. He was immediately disappointed though, when he saw that she was addressing Sasuke. Sasuke glanced at Naruto, then at Sakura, and then shook his head. Sakura's shoulders drooped in disappointment. Hey, Sakura, I'll spar with you. Sakura turned towards Naruto, and then smiled suddenly. Thanks a lot. Let's go. Naruto's spirits rose immediately. He got up quick as a flash, but was stopped when he felt a hand on his shoulder. You're late. Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi Hatake winced at the same time. Naruto turned around with a questioning look on his face. Any specific reason you were late, sensei? Oh, I met a cute girl who wanted to dance with me. Sasuke snorted. Was the cute girl Kurenai-sensei? Kakashi spluttered, while the three students broke out into laughter. The most important dynamic for a team is, funnily enough, teamwork. Here in the world of shinobi, nothing goes by plan. However, perfect teamwork and understanding each other's moves can nullify that disadvantage. Get it? Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto were sitting down, while Kakashi standing up in front of them. The three of them had expected him to start teaching them some technique or the other, but to their surprise, he had instructed them to sit down instead. So, before we start on individual attack patterns, I'm going to make sure you guys work well in tandem. Let's begin. The three of them looked at Kakashi. I'll give you a scenario. The three of you are being opposed by three mid-level chunin. How would you get past them? Naruto, you first. Naruto cocked his head up and declared, I'll make 4 shadow clones and surround them from all sides. Sasuke? I'll try to separate them, and beat them one by one. Sakura? I would have Naruto's shadow clones distract them while the three of us try to escape. Naruto and Sasuke both looked at Sakura with an odd expression. However, Kakashi clapped his hands. Both their looks turned to looks of disbelief. They opened their mouths in protest, but were cut short by Kakashi. No. Listen. I said mid-level Chunin. Which means I specified their strengths. There is always a difference between cowardice and quick thinking. Running away without assessing your opponent's strengths is cowardice. However, when the opponent is clearly stronger than you, and unless you have no other choice, a ninja wouldn't take that fight, not toe-to-toe. Looking down at his students, Kakashi continued, these are the situations you'll be up against in your missions as genin. Do you understand? When the three of them nodded, Kakashi smiled through his mark. And after that rather serious lecture, time for a mission. There was a stunned silence. You mean it? You're the best sensei ever. 2 hours later. Best sensei ever? Sasuke quoted, while mopping his perspiring brow. Naruto was actually winded, and Sakura had already sunk to the ground, steeped in despair, slowly entertaining doubts about her sanity. What kind of sensei gives his team a mission like this? Seriously? Catching goddamn cats? The students' initial enthusiasm had been put out immediately when they realized that their first mission was going to be to catch a cat. And so, after briefing them about their mission, Kakashi had just left with his book in hand, with what Naruto realized now was a snigger. That cat has arrived straight from hell. I swear, if it scratches me just one more bloody time, I'll... Listen, Baka! Sasuke and Naruto both jumped at Sakura's sudden outburst. There is a reason this mission is a mission. Oh? Sasuke sneered. Ignoring the sarcasm in his voice, Sakura continued, this is obviously another test for us to work together. What have we been doing until now, then? We just haven't been working in the right direction. Listen. This is what I think we should do. It was only late in the evening, and after many yells, screams, and expletives of anger and despair, that Kakashi stood in front of his three disheveled students. Sasuke and Naruto seemed to be constantly cursing under their breaths, while Sakura held out the cat to Kakashi. I see. All right then. You finally managed to catch the cat. No shit. Now, let's not all start yelling at each other. Look at Sakura, for example. Look how calm and collected little Sakura is. What kind of mission was that? Who in the name of God owns that cat? Who even listed this as a mission? That was a D rank, Sakura. The owner is the Fire Daimyo's wife, and the Hokage, Kakashi replied, with an even expression. The Hokage listed this mission? That's right. All right, you three. Tomorrow, 7. Barely nodding, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke flopped onto the ground. Man, what a day, huh? As Naruto sank into his bed that night, his thoughts couldn't help but drift towards his other two teammates. Team 7. Of course, Naruto would never say it out loud, but having Sasuke in a team with him wasn't bad at all. In fact, Sasuke was someone Naruto looked at as a rival of sorts, and yet, Sasuke was also there for Naruto as a friend. Uchiha Sasuke, the last surviving member of the Uchiha clan massacre. Uchiha Itachi, an ANBU captain from the Leaf, a member of the Uchiha clan, had murdered the entire Uchiha clan, his own kith and kin, in cold blood. The only known survivor was Uchiha Sasuke, Uchiha Itachi's younger brother. No one knew what had transpired, or what had driven Itachi to commit one of the most brutal acts known to shinobi. Itachi escaped that night, defected from the village, and was consequently named Missing Nin. Again, few years later, Konoha's higher-ups were shaken when intelligence stated that Itachi had entered the ranks of a criminal organization, obscurely called Akatsuki. Apart from this, no information exists pertaining Uchiha Itachi, or the Akatsuki. The Uchiha clan massacre. Naruto and Sasuke hadn't known each other well before then. Naruto still remembered the night. It was almost etched into his memory. For the first time, he had actually talked to Sasuke that night. Hey, are you alright? What's your name? Two young boys were alone in a deserted alley. One was blonde-haired, currently down on his knees, next to a black-haired boy. The latter seemed to have passed out in the middle of the alley, and was slowly just regaining consciousness. Who are you?" the black-haired boy asked groggily, clutching his head. My name's Naruto. What's yours?" "Nah, are you, too?" The black-haired boy's vision started swimming again. However, just before blacking out for the second time that night, beside the vague sound of the blonde-haired boy shaking him lightly, he thought he saw an old man in white robes. 5 days had passed since Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno had been united under the banner of Team 7, under Hatake Kakashi. It had started with that mission of catching Tora, the daimyo's wife's cat. What had followed could only be described as pure torture, that is, if you asked Naruto or Sasuke. Team building, as their sensei called it, was something the 3 genin would soon come to hate. The missions were a mere farce, a cover for the jobs that needed manpower, and large amounts of patience. They had each been left with very less time between missions. Also, Kakashi always seemed to disappear after administering the details, something that always frustrated Sakura to no end. Once, to Sakura's disapproval, the 2 boys had tried skiving off the mission, and that was when they had realized that one couldn't pull the wool under Kakashi Hataki's eyes that easily. All in all, at the end of 15 different routines, the 3 genin seemed to be prepared for another grind. Kakashi Hatake was grinning. Unknowingly, his 3 cute students had already laid the stepping stones to working a perfect routine. In fact, Kakashi had never felt more confident in a team before. At first, it had started with anger. His 3 students had rebuked the contents of the mission. Then, resignation followed. They seemed to accept the fact that these were the missions they would be dealing with. And then, it had happened. It was almost impossible to miss. The flow, the systematic grind of teamwork that Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were implementing. He didn't know what had happened, maybe they had talked it out or something. It didn't matter, really. The 3 of them had somehow worked out a rhythm, and were going according to it. Sasuke seemed to be good at technical analysis, Sakura was ahead in composure and precision, and Naruto was a battery, with stamina galore. Somehow, they had worked on those points, and Team 7 had come to life. Odd, he told himself. He never thought he would genuinely be attached to his students. Oh well, he'd been proved wrong before. Maybe this time, maybe this team, just maybe. The Sandaime Hokage silently observed the 3 young genin, and their Jonin sensei standing in front of him. He cleared his throat, and the 3 genin looked up. Alright, I am to believe that this genin team has finished exactly 15 D-ranked missions? Damn straight we did. And I'm just about done with catching cats, mending houses, and anything else that dash. Shuffling into his list of papers, the Hokage withdrew a sheaf. Without pausing, he opened it. Escort mission, Land of the Waves. Objective, to escort the given personnel to Nami no Kuni and aid in transport of the goods carried. Pausing slightly, he looked up, and almost broke out into laughter. Naruto, Sasuke, and even Sakura's eyes had lit up with what could only be described as joy. C rank. Team 7, do you think you are up for this? Up for it? Up for it? We were born for this shit. Let me at the mission already. Glancing momentarily at Kakashi, who was hiding a smile behind his ever-present book, the Hokage withdrew a seal, and stamped on the sheaf of papers. Approved. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled inwardly. A simple escort mission to the waves. Naruto would return tomorrow. By which time, a certain assassin would have arrived in Konoha. Let me tell you a little story. Hatred is sealed in all of us at the time of birth. This seals that holds hatred back is strong, initially. However, hatred is willing to wait. It doesn't show itself during our childhood. I'll bide my time, it says. Later on, however, a small crack seems to appear on the seal for the first time. We have called upon hatred. Hatred smiles wryly while obeying our command. Unknowingly, we have already started hurtling down a path of no return. Time passes, and as we repeatedly summon hatred to our aid for various reasons, the seal weakens. Hatred knows now that it is only a matter of time, and with a laugh, lends us a portion of its terrible power every time we demand it. And finally, when the seal is greatly damaged, we dare to demand complete power of hatred. With a deafening roar, hatred decimates the seal, and stands in front of us, red eyes and razor-sharp claws, and before we realize our folly, hatred has already swallowed us. Hatred has claimed us for one of its own. Uchiha Madara had laughed, standing in front of the Kyuubi. How would you destroy a man? Give him power. Chapter 11, Do the Wave, Part 1. Kunai? Check. Shuriken? Check. Bandage? Check. Stolen goods? What? Hard drugs? Water you dash? Dead body? Naruto. Alright. Relax, Sakura-chan. 3 young students and their Jounin sensei stood outside the Konohagakure gate. Sasuke had his hands in his pockets, and was wearing a glum expression, apparently not all that used to getting up so early. Sakura was shooting glares at Naruto, who looked as though it was the most joy-inducing thought to be outside one's village at 4:30 in the morning. All 3 of them had their backpacks, and Kakashi was buried in his book as though nothing was happening. Sensei, what are we waiting for exactly? Kakashi looked up, and simply started walking, followed by Sakura and Sasuke. Geez, aren't we a cheerful team? Uzumaki, keep chattering away and you'll soon have my foot in your face. You just have a stick up your ass. Shut up, and keep moving. Not even 2 weeks since Naruto Uzumaki left, and I'm being summoned. Is this a flaw in your plan? What is going on, Sarutobi? Altair ibn Lahad drew his hood back to enjoy the cool air whipping his face. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Altair was already off, aware of the fact that he had a large distance to cover on foot. And why is this so important? Altair could feel the object bouncing in his robes with a rhythmic beat, and as he sprinted on, a wry smile made its way onto his lips. Somehow it was ironic that he had to pick it back up and use it again, right after he'd sworn not to touch it. Power in the palm of my hands. 3 young genin were staring distastefully at a man staring distastefully at 3 young genin. Kakashi, meanwhile, was paying the closest attention. To his book, of course. So, these kids are my escorts? Sakura crinkled her nose at him, while Naruto was visibly affronted by the way this man had addressed them. These kids? Yes. Tazuna glared sharply at Kakashi's short reply, apparently expecting more of an explanation as to why important personnel like him had to put up with 3 scruffy kids and a man who seemed to have the personality of a pile of moist mud. Look here, old man. We're supposed to be escorting you, supposedly a bridge builder, to the wave country. It's not exactly our pleasure waking up at insane hours just to escort some senile old geezer who complains far too much. Naruto's declaration had caught the man off guard, but he soon recovered. Well, looks like the kid's got a big mouth. Naruto bared his teeth in reply, although just for a moment. Realizing that arguing with the bridge builder was an exercise in futility, he simply turned away with a snort. Stop wasting your breath, Uzumaki. Let's just get on with this mission. With a shrug, Kakashi started walking forward, followed by a grumbling Tazuna. Sakura was looking partly worn out already. Sasuke and Naruto were the last ones walking, shoulders slumped and all. How about a game, Sasuke-chan? Sasuke turned when the rock hit him square on the neck. Huh! Come on! You know it'll be fun, don't you? Come on, Sasuke-chan. Thwack. As the sun rose, higher and higher toward its zenith, Team 7 and Tazuna, the bridge builder trudged their way towards Nami no Kuni. The mundane dullness of the mission was seriously starting to affect Naruto and Sasuke, right until... Stop it! Naruto jumped when Sakura turned around and shouted at him. Do you think you're the only one on this mission? Why don't you, for 1 second ACT like some? Duck. Sakura Haruna was cut short of her rebuke when Naruto threw himself on her. Naruto! What the he dash? To Sakura's utter indignation, Naruto roughly stifled her rebuke with his hand. Alarmed, he scrambled back up, and his eyes widened immediately at the sight. Kakashi was still standing, albeit with a stoic expression on his face now. A man lay beneath him, now a large gash running across his exposed shoulder blade. Blood was starting to gush out. What the bloody hell was that all about? Were we just Dash? Naruto. Turn. Naruto's breath caught in his throat. He knew. He knew that he just had a few milliseconds to react, and he knew that if he didn't, his fate would be far worse than the man lying down. However, he didn't. He couldn't. A thick, sickening sound. He turned. Sasuke Uchiha had reacted, quicker than him. It was quick though, not clean. The second assailant fell, a kunai lodged in his temple. His eyes had rolled upward, and he screamed for just a fraction of a second more, before Kakashi brought his foot crashing down on the spot where the kunai was lodged. Sakura screamed in turn, Sasuke panted, looking sharply at him, and Kakashi bent down to wipe the blood off his shoes. Tazuna, meanwhile, had just fainted. Uzumaki, what was that? Where was your reaction? Naruto knew it wasn't a taunt. However superior Sasuke could act, he wouldn't choose to do so now. Naruto could actually sense concern in his voice, though heavily masked. Kakashi, done cleaning his shoes, looked half-heartedly at Tazuna, and then at Sakura, who was clutching her mouth tightly. Sakura! Get a hold of yourself! Revived Tazuna. Kakashi looked at Naruto. A faster reaction is always an advantage. You've learned it firsthand now, haven't you? That's all you're going to say? We were nearly killed, and that's your word of advice? That's all as need to be said. Naruto turned sharply, but was immediately silenced by the sight of Kakashi bending down towards one of their assailants. He removed the shawl covering their necks, and drew a sudden, sharp breath. The Mist Ninja. What is the mean? And then, just like that, ever so suddenly it happened. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura hadn't realized it at the time, but they had just initiated a train of events that would have them engage in one of the most dangerous battles of their lives, and meet two men who would change their entire future. Sakura Haruno's usually steady brain was in complete disarray. Two attackers, both quelled by Kakashi, and then this. A heavy mist seemed to have enveloped the entire area. The climate had shifted suddenly from a humid, warm temperature to a dry, cool setting. She could even feel the beads of sweat going cold against her forehead, and her breath had shortened considerably, though she couldn't register if it was because of terror or the mist. Sakura-chan? Sakura looked up, and her heart skipped several beats when she realized that she couldn't even see forward clearly. In fact, she could only vaguely make out that Naruto was standing in front of her, and Tazuna was close to her. Kakashi and Sasuke were invisible, and the mist was shrouding even Naruto's obscure form now. Let's see now, 8 vital spots to be attacked. Liver, lungs, spine, clavicle, neck, head, stomach, heart. It was a peculiar voice. Merely a hoarse whisper, but it was almost as if the mist amplified the whisper, and amidst the mist, it served its purpose. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura were frozen, sheer terror running through their veins. And as if to mock them, a laugh seemed to echo. Tazuna shivered wildly next to Sakura, who was rooted to the spot, not showing a hint of movement. What do we have here? Bodyguards for my target? And just like that, the mist cleared, to reveal a terrorizing sight. Kakashi was standing with his arms folded, staring at a tall, muscular man, with a garment running across his face, effectively covering his mouth. His head was leaning sideways slightly, owing to the presence of an enormous blade, swung over the man's shoulder. However, the man's appearance came nowhere near scathing Naruto, not nearly as much as his eyes. To put it simply, the man's eyes had deadened, and it was as if his eyes were replaced by 2 lifeless orbs. The mere sight of how it just stared, soullessly simply terrified the 3 inexperienced genin. Momochi Zabuza, demon of the hidden mist, if I'm not wrong. The 3 students looked up at their sensei. Kakashi simply stood calmly, eyeing the man. His tone was not shaky, nor was it urgent. I see that my reputation precedes me. Although, the same can be said for you, Kakashi of the Sharingan. Kakashi chuckled, much to the surprise of his 3 students and their escort. You have done your homework. Enough idle talk, Kakashi, we both know what I'm here for. Kakashi didn't react, but Naruto immediately registered what was going on. He's here for Tazuna. He was ashamed to admit it, but for a fraction of a second, he was relieved that it wasn't him this person was after. The very thought of going up in battle against him seemed to leaden his motor functions, though only for an instant. There is always a difference between cowardice and quick thinking. Running away without assessing your opponent's strengths is cowardice. However, when the opponent is clearly stronger than you, and unless you have no other choice, a ninja wouldn't take that fight. Naruto gulped, and forced himself to look at Zabuza. Registering the minute movement, the man turned away from Kakashi to look at Naruto. You seem like you want to say something, my young friend. Naruto's heart thumped fiercely. No. Zabuza furrowed his brows in mock questioning. Never. Sakura, Kakashi, and Sasuke's heads all turned towards him at the same instant. Sakura's mouth was wide open, and Sasuke was wide-eyed. We're entrusted to escort this man to safety. I will not go back on our mission. Zabuza was still for a short while, and then the shawl around his mouth twitched. He was smiling. How chivalrous! Bravery is always a spectacle to see in one as young as you are. All of them were interrupted by a light swish ing sound. Momochi Zabuza, do not forget that you are yet to pass me. Your fight is with me, and me alone. Kakashi had readied a hand seal, and was staring dead center into Zabuza's eyes. How cute, the sensei protects the students. And just like that, Zabuza brought his right arm swishing down towards Kakashi. Kakashi, unfazed, stepped back deftly, neatly avoiding the attack. Are you ready to die? The fight had begun. Uchiha Sasuke's hand seemed to quiver. So this is what a real battle is like. His mouth had gone completely dry, and it was becoming harder to breathe with every passing second. The two shinobi in front of him, talking some time ago, had engaged in battle and the effect was suffocating. It was become progressively harder to follow their movements, and as Kakashi wove around intricately between Zabuza's half-hearted strikes, the forest seemed to resonate with the sounds of the swinging blade. And then, it had happened. The two shinobi stopped momentarily, and jumped back a few feet. Enough playtime, don't you think, Kakashi? Sasuke's eyes darted toward Naruto and Sakura, standing to his left. Tazuna was behind them, curled up in a fetal position, apparently still unconscious. Naruto's eyes met his, and oddly enough, the blonde-haired boy didn't convey anything. He just remained blank, rooted to the spot. When Sasuke turned back to Kakashi, he received one of the greatest shocks of his entire life. What? How is that even possible? A Sharingan? Hatake Kakashi allowed himself to get used to the sensation. Pulling his mask down had allowed him to utilize what he was now famous for, the Sharingan given to him by Uchiha Obito. As both his eyes refocused quickly, the familiar buzzing sensation swarmed his face. The Sharingan was ready to go. The left side of his face twitched. He smiled wryly. So, Obito, here I am again, in need of your power. Help me, my friend. Zabuza flexed his left arm, and held out his massive sword in a different stance, a two-handed pose. I see. Now things are bound to get interesting, aren't they? Kakashi stared back emotionlessly. Things were looking bad as of now. He was almost sure that Zabuza had more accomplices. The first two were merely baits. Tazuna had fainted, and his three students were obviously shaken. He cursed inwardly. If only I'd been alert and sent them off immediately. But still Still calm, he looked at Zabuza. Forgive me, demon of the mist, but I assure you, this will be your last battle. A chuckle. Don't be too sure. Without a moment's notice, he sprinted forward. Zabuza seemed to tighten his gait, though only momentarily. A very minute cocking of the shoulders was enough for Kakashi's Sharingan. Top left. The massive blade came crashing down, though only to strike at thin air. Not wasting a moment, whipped out his palm, kunai extended, at Zabuza's waist. Not bad at all, Kakashi. You seem to have become too comfortable with the Uchiha Dojutsu. Zabuza proved to be insanely nimble, cleanly dodging Kakashi's kunai strikes. Kakashi replied with another swing, and Zabuza retaliated brilliantly, dodging cleanly yet again, and adjusting his stance to give him enough room to lash out. That sword of yours is too big, isn't it? I don't think so, myself. Angling his strike obliquely this time, Kakashi was caught by surprise. For a heart-stopping split second, the sword seemed to have met its mark, cutting clean through Kakashi's stomach. Sakura screamed, and Naruto drew a breath in sharply. It only lasted a second though. Kakashi's cleaved body was suddenly replaced by a puff of smoke, which cleared to reveal a log. Zabuza sighed, as Kakashi jumped down from the tree. Kawarimi. Body replacement can come in very handy, you know. Leaping back, Kakashi smiled at Zabuza. And now it's my turn. Suiton, Suryuden no Jutsu. Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke turned to see the water surrounding the land they were on rise in a majestic display of ninjutsu, one that they wouldn't forget for many years to come. Sakura's eyes widened and her heart almost stopped beating when she witnessed the water take the place of a huge, roaring dragon. Kakashi-sensei knows jutsu like these? She suddenly snapped her head back to Zabuza when she heard him laugh. Copy Ninja Kakashi, you realize, don't you, that your jutsu are only what you claim to be? Copies. And to the three students' utter terror, an enormous water dragon rose from Zabuza's side, one that would rival Kakashi's. The genin could do nothing but watch, as the two shinobi's respective behemoths clashed together in a stupendous contest of ninjutsu prowess. The noise was deafening. Kakashi stood calmly on one side, tilting his head and muttering words to himself, as his water dragon threatened to down Zabuza's. Zabuza, on the other side, watched as Kakashi's dragon curled around his and squeezed. What say, Zabuza? Who seems to be the paler copy? It was a sight that three genin had never witnessed. Their calm, collected sensei was suddenly mocking and taunting, a demeanor THQT sent shivers of discomfort. Instead of the usual lopsided smile that Kakashi wore, his face was now sporting a twisted scowl, and his eyebrows were furrowed. Naruto's eyes followed Zabuza as he turned, and his expression deepened. You dare mock me? Yes. I dare. You shouldn't have. Kakashi's smile vanished when he saw the seals Zabuza manifested. Miza Bunshin no Jutsu. To the three students' horror, another Zabuza stood next to Zabuza, and out of nowhere, the original caster dispelled the hand seal, rushing forward. For a fraction of a second, the water froze midair and dropped to the ground, but it immediately resumed its form when the seal was taken up by Zabuza's clone. What now, copy ninja? What now? Simultaneously, Zabuza's dragon vanquished Kakashi's, and Zabuza moved his blade forward in one fluid motion, going straight for Kakashi. Now you die. The terrifying sound of an impending death blow closed in on Hatake Kakashi. And yet, he remained calm, even in the very face of death. It was simple, so much simpler than he had envisaged. Chidori. To Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura, it all happened like a blur. 1 second, Kakashi was about to be cleaved neatly in two, the next second, his palm, holding a brilliant blue ball of pulsating lightning, was emerging out of a chest. Momochi Zabuza's chest. Devious little ninja, aren't you, Kakashi Hatake? Kakashi's stare bored into the back of Zabuza's eyes. It was a sight to behold. Kakashi Hatake stood, raising Momochi Zabuza by his neck with one hand, the other hand passing through a huge bloody wound across his chest, pulsating lightning still sustaining at the very end. I assured you, did I not? Zabuza's body was twitching regularly with every passing second. He seemed to be shivering. Why, yes, you did. Kakashi still looked right into Zabuza's eyes. A slow smile made its way onto Kakashi's face. So you accept defeat? You know, Hatake Kakashi, the only thing that's been running through my mind ever since I met you? Zabuza's smile slowly mimicked the one on Kakashi's face. Drawing a shuddering breath, Zabuza bit down on his lips. You really are a cocky little bastard, aren't you? For a second, it seemed as though Kakashi's grip had loosened on the man in front of him. Only for a second, though, for the very next second, it all happened simultaneously. Kakashi's eyes widened in shock. Zabuza's body burst into a mass of water in front of him, and Momochi Zabuza slashed a deep gash across Haruno Sakura's shoulder. What? How can a clone bleed? Naruto turned only a few seconds later, to realize that Zabuza had played them, to realize that Zabuza had targeted them, to realize Kakashi had erred. However, the fact that Zabuza Momochi had killed Sakura Haruno only registered a few seconds late. Tut, so much blood. Where was your Sharingan, Kakashi? You should have detected me. Sasuke screamed, and Zabuza simply stood, hunched over Sakura's violently spasming body. He turned and fixed Naruto with a stare. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Sometimes you can cause enough pain to override normal actions. She's in pain, alright? Now you next, my brave man? Naruto looked back into his eyes, devoid of thought. Hidden at first like blood on a rose. Wicked demon, your eyes stay closed. The assassin known as Altair somehow sensed the object inside his robes twitch minimally. But then, with time, the petals fall. Nothing is hidden, nothing at all. Wicked demon opens its eyes. A flash of red, a feral cry. Hidden at first like blood on a rose. Wicked demon, the end is close. I'm really starting to like this. The wind had stopped completely all of a sudden, and from atop his perch, a man jumped down lively, as if he'd been doing it all his life. Ezio Auditore forced himself to tear his eyes away from the battle in front of him to inspect his artifact, which, if he wasn't wrong, had just twitched.